The first thing Ethan Vale smelled when he opened his eyes was death. Not blood, not smoke. Death. It hung in the air like an invisible fog, dry and bitter, carrying the scent of rotten salt, scorched earth, and something ancient that had been buried beneath the soil for far too long. Then came the screaming. Hundreds of voices exploded across the endless blue horizon. Some were cheering. Some were laughing. Some were crying from sheer disbelief. Ethan pushed himself upright and stared around him. He was standing on an island. Calling it an island was generous. The miserable patch of land beneath his feet couldn't have been more than 30 meters across. Black soil stretched from one end to the other, cracked so deeply that Ethan could slide his fingers into some of the gaps. 3 dead trees leaned toward the ocean like skeletons begging for water. A tiny pond occupied the center of the island, except there wasn't a single drop inside it. The bottom was nothing but gray mud. Beyond the shore waited an ocean without end, and floating above that ocean were thousands upon thousands of islands. Green islands. Beautiful islands. Impossible islands. One man stood beneath a grove of coconut trees already heavy with fruit. Another woman had appeared beside a sparkling freshwater spring. Farther away, Ethan could see an island covered in berry bushes and fertile grass. Someone had even received a small forest. Then the cold voice returned. It wasn't coming from the sky. It spoke directly inside every human mind. Human civilization has entered the Endless Archipelago. Each survivor has received one origin island. Expand your territory. Gather resources. Survive disasters. Trade with other island lords. Conquer the ocean. Evolution belongs to those capable of adapting. Failure means extinction. Ethan remained silent. 3 seconds later, translucent information appeared before his eyes. His island possessed almost nothing. The soil was classified as completely infertile. The freshwater reserve was 0. Vegetation consisted of 3 dead trees. Natural food production was 0. Resource potential was almost non-existent. Even the evaluation seemed reluctant to insult him further. The final assessment was simple: a dead island. Ethan stared at those words. Then laughter erupted somewhere across the ocean. A muscular young man standing on an island, perhaps 200 meters away, had apparently discovered the public communication function. His voice immediately flooded the regional channel. He had spawned with 12 coconut trees, a freshwater spring, fertile soil, and several chickens. Messages appeared rapidly afterward. Someone had 20 berry bushes. Another survivor had found iron deposits beneath his island. One woman claimed her island contained medicinal herbs. Another man proudly announced that he had received an abandoned fishing hut containing nets, hooks, and a small boat. People who had spent the first minutes terrified were suddenly celebrating. The rules were brutal, but everyone understood something fundamental. Resources meant survival. Better islands meant better starting positions. And then someone asked the obvious question. Who had received the worst island? Ethan looked down at the cracked black earth beneath his boots. He didn't bother answering. Unfortunately, the system did it for him. Regional ranking completed. Island potential rankings were displayed publicly. First place possessed extraordinary resource potential. Second place possessed excellent agricultural potential. Third place contained a rare mineral deposit. Names continued descending. Ethan's appeared at the very bottom. 10,000th place. Ethan Vale. Island condition, dead. Potential evaluation, essentially worthless. The regional channel went silent. Then it exploded. People laughed so hard that the messages became nearly unreadable. Someone asked whether Ethan had offended God. Another suggested he jump into the ocean now and save himself several days of starvation. The muscular man with the coconut grove introduced himself as Marcus Kane and seemed especially amused. He publicly offered Ethan 1 coconut in exchange for everything valuable on his island. Ethan looked around. 3 dead trees, cracked dirt, an empty pond. Marcus quickly corrected himself. Half a coconut. More laughter followed. Ethan closed the communication channel. Mockery didn't produce calories. Panic didn't produce water. He had survived 28 years in the old world by understanding one simple principle. When reality became cruel, emotions became expensive. He crouched beside the nearest dead tree and examined it. The bark crumbled beneath his fingers, completely dry. Probably useless as anything except firewood. Still, firewood was something. He broke off a branch. The moment his fingers touched it, another voice whispered inside his mind. Different, quieter, ancient. A faint golden light appeared across Ethan's vision. An unknown authority had awakened. The dead branch in his hand trembled. Ethan froze. The golden text changed. Any resource belonging completely to Ethan could be upgraded. The upgrade would increase its fundamental quality 100-fold. 100-fold. Ethan's heartbeat stopped for half a second. He looked at the rotten branch. There was only one way to discover whether he was hallucinating. He chose to upgrade it. Golden light swallowed the wood. The transformation lasted less than a second. When the light disappeared, Ethan was no longer holding rotten timber. A smooth piece of dark red wood rested across his palms. It was dense, perfectly dry, and strangely warm. Thin golden veins ran through the grain. New information appeared. Century Emberwood. A rare combustible material created from wood exposed to concentrated natural energy for approximately 100 years. Burning duration was vastly superior to ordinary timber. Heat output was exceptional, suitable for crafting advanced tools, structures, weapons, and specialized equipment. Ethan stared at it. Then he slowly turned toward the 3 dead trees. His island was dead. That suddenly didn't sound like a disadvantage. It sounded like inventory. Ethan placed his palm against the first tree. Upgrade. Golden light erupted. The skeletal trunk shuddered. Its roots drove deeper into the island. Dead bark peeled away. Dark crimson wood emerged underneath. The tree didn't return to life. It became something far more valuable. A towering emberwood tree now stood where worthless timber had existed seconds earlier. Ethan immediately tested the soil. A handful of black dirt rested in his palm. Upgrade. The dead earth changed. Its color deepened from lifeless gray-black into rich volcanic brown. Tiny crystalline particles glittered beneath the sunlight. The information made Ethan's expression change for the first time. 100-fold enriched spirit soil. Extremely fertile cultivation soil. Accelerates ordinary plant growth dramatically. Improves nutritional density. Small probability of causing beneficial mutations in compatible crops. Ethan looked across the entire island, 30 meters. Nearly every inch covered in worthless dirt, except worthless dirt multiplied by 100 was no longer worthless. He laughed once. Quietly. Marcus Kane and the others were celebrating because they had received good islands. Ethan had received something better. A terrible island containing resources so poor that upgrading them would create absurd gains. The others had begun at 10. He had begun at 1. But every time Ethan touched one, it became 100. And something told him this was only the beginning. He upgraded a section of soil around the empty pond. Then he approached the pond itself. There was no water to upgrade, but gray mud remained at the bottom. Ethan touched it. The golden ability reacted. Upgrade available, he accepted. The island trembled. Ethan jumped backward. A deep crack echoed underground. For one terrible moment, he thought he had destroyed his only territory. Then water erupted from the center of the pond. Not muddy seawater. Crystal clear fresh water. It surged upward, filling the depression rapidly before overflowing into the surrounding soil. The system identified it as a minor spirit spring. The original underground moisture had been so weak that it could barely produce damp mud. After being amplified 100-fold, it had transformed into a renewable freshwater source. Ethan knelt and drank. Cold sweetness touched his tongue. His exhaustion disappeared almost immediately. He drank again. The water wasn't merely safe. It restored physical stamina. Ethan looked toward the neighboring islands. Marcus was still boasting about his freshwater spring. Ordinary freshwater, Ethan almost smiled. Then hunger reminded him that water alone wouldn't keep him alive. He had soil. He had water. He had wood. But he had no seeds. That was when the global survival system issued its first mission. Before sunset, every island lord needed to construct basic shelter and secure enough food and water for one day. Successful survivors would receive a beginner supply chest. Failure would result in no reward. Nighttime temperature was expected to drop significantly. Ethan checked the sun. Maybe 6 hours remained. He immediately began working. One upgraded emberwood tree provided more timber than expected. Even thin branches were incredibly durable. Ethan avoided upgrading everything because he still didn't understand whether his mysterious ability had limitations. After several experiments, he discovered the first restriction. He could upgrade each independent resource only once. A piece of upgraded emberwood couldn't simply be multiplied another 100 times. The second limitation was ownership. He couldn't target distant islands. The object needed to belong to him completely. The third limitation was more interesting. The ability didn't merely increase quantity. It improved quality according to the nature of the target. Bad soil became extraordinary soil. Weak underground moisture became a spirit spring. Rotten wood became rare timber. What would happen if he obtained an ordinary seed? Ethan opened the trading channel. Chaos greeted him. Thousands of survivors were already exchanging resources. Freshwater was expensive. Food was even more expensive. Wood had moderate value. Stone was surprisingly desirable because many islands lacked exposed rock. Ethan possessed something nobody else had: rare timber. But revealing its true nature would attract attention far too early. So he cut a small amount of Emberwood into pieces and listed only one. He described it simply as high-density dry wood suitable for long-duration burning. Within seconds, offers arrived. 2 coconuts, 3 handfuls of berries, a crude stone knife, 5 ordinary branches. Then someone offered 20 tomato seeds. Ethan accepted immediately. The trader probably thought he had committed robbery. Ethan thought exactly the same thing. 20 tiny seeds appeared in his hand. He separated one. Upgrade. The seed glowed. When the light vanished, its surface had become golden red. Hundredfold vitality tomato seed. Growth speed dramatically increased. Yield dramatically increased. Fruit quality enhanced. Resistance to disease and environmental stress greatly improved. Ethan planted it. He poured spirit spring water across the enriched soil. Then he waited. 10 seconds, nothing. 30 seconds. A green shoot emerged. Ethan's eyes narrowed. 2 minutes later, the shoot had become a young plant. 10 minutes later, yellow flowers opened. Half an hour after planting, Ethan stood before a waist-high tomato plant covered with dozens of heavy red fruits. He picked one. It weighed almost a kilogram. The moment Ethan bit into it, juice flooded his mouth. Sweet, rich, almost unnaturally delicious, warm energy entered his stomach. His hunger disappeared after half the fruit. The system informed him that the tomato possessed enhanced nutritional properties and minor stamina-restoring effects. Ethan stared at the remaining tomatoes. 1 upgraded seed, dozens of fruits. And every fruit contained more seeds. The implications were ridiculous. By sunset, Ethan had planted 5 upgraded tomato seeds. He deliberately kept the remaining ordinary seeds untouched. Never spend every resource before understanding tomorrow's needs. The 5 plants produced more food than he could consume for days. He completed the survival mission easily. His shelter was primitive, constructed from Emberwood branches and layered leaves purchased cheaply from another survivor. But because the structure used upgraded timber, the system evaluated it far above an ordinary beginner shelter. Night fell. Temperatures collapsed. Across the regional channel, complaints began almost immediately. People were freezing. Several survivors who had spent the afternoon boasting, instead of preparing, desperately traded food for firewood. Marcus remained comfortable because his island had abundant trees. Ethan sat beside a tiny Emberwood fire. One branch burned steadily without weakening. His shelter remained warm. He ate another vitality tomato while watching the stars. Then midnight arrived. The beginner supply chest materialized. A battered wooden box dropped onto the soil. Ethan's expression became serious. Anything belonging to him could be upgraded once. A supply chest belonged to him. He touched it. Golden light appeared. Upgrade available. Ethan selected yes. The battered box vanished beneath a pillar of gold. When the light faded, a massive black and gold chest sat before him. The system's identification appeared. Hundredfold beginner supply chest. Guaranteed enhanced rewards. Small probability of obtaining rare architectural blueprints. Small probability of obtaining special island resources. Extremely small probability of obtaining evolutionary treasures. Ethan opened it. The lid rose. Golden light illuminated his face. Inside were preserved food, iron tools, seeds, construction materials, and several items he couldn't immediately identify. Then he saw the blueprint. Island Expansion Core. Ethan picked it up, his pulse accelerated. Every island lord could expand territory, but ordinary expansion required huge quantities of stone, soil, wood, and ocean essence. This core could directly create additional permanent land. The standard beginner chest apparently had a tiny chance of containing a minor expansion fragment capable of adding 1 square meter. Ethan's upgraded chest contained something different. 100-fold island expansion core. Territory increase upon activation. 100 square meters. Ethan looked at his miserable 30-meter island. Then he activated the core. The ocean roared. The entire island shook. Far away, several survivors turned toward the sound. Earth surged upward from beneath the sea. Stone rose first, then soil. The shoreline expanded violently outward. 30 meters became 40. 40 became 50. The transformation continued. Ethan watched new territory emerge beneath moonlight until his tiny dead island had become several times larger. The global ranking updated automatically. Ethan's name moved. 10,000th place became 8,417. Then 7,000. Then 5,000. The regional channel exploded. Marcus immediately demanded to know how the dead island loser had expanded his territory on the first night. Ethan didn't answer. He was looking at another item from the chest, a small transparent crystal. Ordinary island lords could use such crystals to improve one resource node slightly. Ethan touched it. The golden ability responded. Upgrade. The crystal transformed. Hundredfold resource evolution crystal, capable of forcing a major evolution in one island resource. Ethan slowly turned toward his freshwater spring, then toward his enriched soil, then toward the remaining dead trees. He could evolve one of them. Before he decided, the survival system interrupted every human alive. The ocean darkened. The stars disappeared behind clouds. A warning spread across the sky in enormous crimson letters. The first disaster would arrive in 72 hours. A corrosive storm. Rainfall would poison ordinary freshwater sources, damage crops, weaken wooden structures, and contaminate exposed soil. Survivors were advised to prepare immediately. Across thousands of islands, celebration died. People stared at their fertile farms, their freshwater ponds, their green forests. Everything that had seemed like a blessing suddenly became vulnerable. Ethan looked at his hundredfold resource evolution crystal. Then at the dead island, everyone had mocked. For the first time since arriving in this world, he smiled without restraint. Because while everyone else had 72 hours to protect what they already owned, Ethan had 72 hours to turn garbage into treasures. And the first thing he intended to upgrade was the island itself. Ethan did not sleep. While thousands of island lords stared at the crimson disaster warning and panicked over crops, shelters, and drinking water, he sat beside the minor spirit spring with the hundredfold resource evolution crystal resting between his fingers. 72 hours. That was all humanity had before the corrosive storm arrived. For ordinary survivors, 72 hours was terrifyingly short. For Ethan, it was enough time to become unrecognizable. He first considered using the evolution crystal on the spring. Water was life. If the storm contaminated ordinary freshwater, possessing an evolved source could make him one of the richest people in the region. But there was a problem. The crystal could enhance one resource. The island contained everything. So Ethan walked to the center of his territory and pressed his palm against the ground. The mysterious golden authority immediately responded. The island itself was recognized as his absolute territory. Upgrade conditions were satisfied. Ethan's eyes sharpened. He had been right. The ability could target the entire island. But the cost was different. Instead of activating freely like it had with individual objects, upgrading a complete territory required an evolutionary catalyst. Ethan looked at the crystal in his hand. Perfect. He activated it. The crystal dissolved. Golden light sank into the earth. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the ocean exploded. A thunderous vibration traveled beneath Ethan's feet. He nearly lost his balance as golden cracks raced across the island like veins of molten sunlight. The three remaining dead trees shook violently. The enriched soil rippled. The spirit spring erupted several meters into the air. Deep underground, stone groaned. Something enormous was changing. Then Ethan felt it. Energy. Before this moment, the island had been land, nothing more. Now it felt alive. The system reevaluated his territory. His dead origin island had evolved into a hundredfold primordial island. Its soil possessed natural regenerative properties. Its geological foundation had become dramatically stronger. Natural resource generation had increased. Plants cultivated within its territory would experience accelerated growth. Freshwater purification had increased. Resistance against environmental disasters had increased tremendously. Most importantly, resources naturally born from the island now possessed a small probability of mutation. Ethan stood motionless. He reread the information. Disaster resistance. The corrosive storm had suddenly become far less threatening, but that wasn't what truly captured his attention. Natural resource generation. He immediately began exploring the expanded territory. Yesterday, most of the newly created land had been ordinary stone and barren dirt. Now thin green shoots were emerging from the soil. Moss spread across several rocks. Grass appeared near the spring. The transformation wasn't instantaneous, but the island was repairing itself. Ethan walked toward the northern shore. Something glittered between two stones. He crouched. A pale crystal protruded from the ground. Salt crystal. Ordinary, almost worthless. Ethan touched it. Upgrade. The crystal expanded. Its cloudy surface became translucent blue. Purified ocean essence salt. A rare mineral containing concentrated trace energy. Suitable for cooking, preservation, alchemy, and certain evolutionary recipes. Ethan laughed. The island hadn't merely become safer. It had become a factory capable of generating raw materials for his ability. The richer the island became, the more things he could upgrade. And the more things he upgraded, the richer the island became. It was a perfect cycle. By sunrise, the regional channel had transformed into a marketplace of fear. Wood prices tripled. Stone prices doubled. Containers for storing freshwater became absurdly expensive. Seeds collapsed in value because people were afraid crops wouldn't survive the corrosive rain. Food prices climbed steadily. Ethan watched silently. Then he began buying. He sold ordinary vitality tomatoes without revealing their special properties. One tomato could purchase several handfuls of seeds. He traded small pieces of emberwood as premium firewood. He bought clay, sand, plant fibers, broken tools, even trash. Especially trash. Other survivors couldn't understand his behavior. Why would anyone trade food for damaged equipment? Why buy cracked clay jars when intact containers were available? Why purchase low-quality seeds? Marcus noticed. The man sent Ethan a private message. He offered protection. In exchange, Ethan would provide half of all resources produced by his island. Ethan declined. Marcus immediately doubled down. He reminded Ethan that island warfare would eventually become possible. A weak survivor with valuable resources would become prey. Ethan ignored him. Marcus sent one final message. He promised Ethan would regret refusing. Ethan closed the conversation and upgraded a cracked clay jar. The fractured pottery transformed into a sealed ceramic reservoir capable of preserving hundreds of liters of water without contamination. Ethan stared at it. Then he bought every cracked jar available. By noon, he possessed 12 enhanced reservoirs. He filled each one from the spirit spring. His water stockpile became enormous. Next came food. The vitality tomatoes reproduced so quickly that he needed additional land just to organize them. But relying on one crop would be foolish. He upgraded potato seeds. The resulting tubers matured within hours. He upgraded wheat. Golden stalks rose from the enriched soil before sunset. He upgraded a handful of strawberry seeds. The plant spread aggressively, producing enormous crimson berries with enhanced nutritional properties. Each crop generated new seeds. Those offspring retained some benefits of their upgraded parent, though they were noticeably weaker than the original. That discovery was important. Ethan couldn't directly upgrade the same resource twice, but reproduction allowed upgraded organisms to create descendants. Those descendants were technically new resources, which meant they could be upgraded again. Ethan tested the theory on a second-generation tomato seed. Golden light answered. Upgrade available. His breathing slowed. This changed everything. He activated it. The resulting seed was nothing like the first. When planted, the vine grew along the ground with astonishing speed. Its roots penetrated deep into the spirit soil, and within an hour, fist-sized fruits appeared. The system identified the new crop as crimson vitality fruit. It was no longer classified as an ordinary tomato. Eating one could restore significant stamina, improve minor injuries, and temporarily increase physical endurance. Ethan held the crimson fruit and understood the terrifying implication. Evolution didn't end after one generation. It could compound through reproduction, 100-fold, then descendants, then another 100-fold. Theoretically, a worthless seed could eventually become something mythical. His island was not merely capable of producing resources. It was capable of breeding miracles. Ethan immediately changed strategy. He divided his land into cultivation zones. The highest quality soil near the spirit spring became his experimental farm. Ordinary upgraded crops occupied the outer zone. Second-generation plants remained near the center. He carefully stored seeds from every harvest. Nothing was wasted. By the end of the first day, his island had become visibly green. The regional rankings updated. Ethan rose to 3,612. People noticed. Questions flooded the channel. How was the dead island developing so quickly? Had Ethan discovered a hidden treasure? Had the original evaluation been wrong? Ethan answered none of them. The less others understood, the longer his advantage remained safe. The next morning brought another announcement. The survival system opened blueprint construction. Island lords could now create permanent structures if they possessed the required materials. Basic warehouse, rainwater collector, stone furnace, defensive fence, fishing platform, agricultural shed, and storm shelter. Everyone immediately focused on the storm shelter. The requirements were brutal for beginners. 200 units of wood, 100 units of stone, 30 units of fiber, 10 units of metal. Most survivors didn't have enough. Ethan did. Or rather, he had something much better. He purchased a damaged storm shelter blueprint from a survivor who had found it inside a chest but couldn't repair it. The blueprint was nearly useless. Parts of its construction information had been destroyed. The seller demanded 20 tomatoes. Ethan paid without hesitation. The damaged blueprint appeared in his hands. Upgrade. Golden light flashed. The torn paper repaired itself. Additional architectural patterns spread across its surface. Hundredfold fortress shelter blueprint. Ethan almost dropped it. The structure required significantly more materials than the basic shelter, but its defensive properties were incomparable. Resistance against corrosive rain, resistance against extreme heat and cold, resistance against high winds, resistance against minor sea creature attacks, integrated water purification, integrated food storage, expandable underground chamber. Ethan looked at the material requirements: stone, wood, metal, fiber. He had enough emberwood. He had enough fiber. Stone was manageable. Metal was the problem. His beginner chest had provided iron tools, but destroying them for construction would be wasteful. So Ethan searched the marketplace. Broken iron was cheap. He bought rusted nails, bent blades, damaged fishing hooks, fragments of metal nobody wanted. Then he piled them together. Ownership recognized. Upgrade. The rust vanished, the scraps fused. What remained was a dense block of high-purity refined iron. Ethan repeated the process. Within 2 hours, he possessed enough metal. Construction began. The system assisted with assembly once all required materials had been collected. Stone rose from the earth. Emberwood beams locked together. Iron reinforcement sank into the foundation. By sunset, Ethan's primitive shelter was gone. In its place stood a compact fortress. Thick stone walls, a sloped roof, reinforced windows. An underground storage chamber, a central fireplace, drainage channels, water storage. It looked absurd on an island that had been officially declared worthless 2 days earlier. The regional ranking changed again. Ethan reached 908. Marcus sent another message. This time there was no laughter. He asked where Ethan had obtained so many construction resources. Ethan ignored him. Marcus offered a trade. 10 coconuts for the secret. Ethan ignored him again. Then Marcus threatened him. Ethan finally responded with 2 words: too expensive. Marcus didn't understand. Ethan wasn't talking about the secret. He was talking about Marcus's life. Because Ethan had begun studying another system function: island merging. When warfare unlocked, defeated island lords could lose territory. Their islands could be absorbed. Marcus's island had fertile soil, coconut trees, chickens. Freshwater. To Ethan, that wasn't an enemy. It was a future resource package. 48 hours remained. The sky was already changing. Clouds gathered at the horizon. The ocean became restless. Fish disappeared from shallow water. Survivors worked desperately. Some built drainage trenches. Others covered crops with leaves. Several began slaughtering livestock because they feared losing everything during the storm. Ethan did the opposite. He expanded. His hundredfold primordial island had begun producing small quantities of stone naturally along the southern edge. He collected loose rocks, upgraded them. Ordinary limestone became dense fortress stone. He used it to reinforce the shoreline. Then he discovered something beneath the island. While digging drainage channels, his shovel struck a metallic surface. Ethan cleared the soil. A tiny vein of low-grade iron ore ran through the rock. The system estimated the deposit at less than 20 kilograms. On another island, it would barely deserve attention. Ethan placed his hand against it. Upgrade. The earth shook. The thin mineral vein thickened. Stone cracked apart as dark metallic ore spread deeper underground. The original low-grade deposit evolved into a rich iron vein. Estimated reserves increased enormously. Ethan stood inside the shallow excavation and stared. Metal scarcity had disappeared. He now controlled a renewable agricultural system. Enhanced freshwater, rare timber, fortified shelter, and an iron deposit. The dead island had become richer than most islands ranked in the top 1,000. But the public ranking didn't understand his hidden resource quality. That suited Ethan perfectly. 24 hours remained. The first corrosive drizzle arrived early. A few green drops fell from the clouds. Where they touched ordinary leaves on distant islands, brown spots appeared. Panic exploded. Survivors rushed to cover crops. Some freshwater ponds began showing contamination warnings. Ethan stood outside his fortress and watched a green droplet land on the back of his hand. It stung slightly. He washed it away. Then he checked his island. The grass remained green. The enriched soil absorbed the corrosive water and neutralized much of its toxicity. The spirit spring remained clear. The primordial island's resistance was working. Not perfectly, But enough, Ethan needed one final preparation. Food, water, shelter, and materials were secure. What he lacked was defense. Disasters rarely came alone. The system had mentioned sea creature attacks. Ethan searched the marketplace for weapons, spear axes, bows. Most were expensive. Then he found a damaged fishing spear. The wooden shaft was cracked. The iron head was rusted. Nobody wanted it. Ethan traded 2 ordinary potatoes. He held the broken spear upgrade. Golden light flowed from his fingers. The weapon lengthened. The shaft darkened into something resembling emberwood. The rusted point became black metal. When the transformation ended, Ethan felt a faint vibration in the weapon. 100-fold Tide Piercer Spear. Extremely durable. Enhanced penetration against aquatic creatures. Minor water energy conduction. Ethan swung it once. The spear cut through the air with a sharp whistle. He smiled. Then the ocean alarm sounded. Every survivor received the same warning. 12 hours before the corrosive storm. Dangerous marine creatures were becoming active due to changes in atmospheric pressure. Island lords were advised to remain away from shorelines. Almost immediately, something struck Ethan's southern coast. The impact shook nearby rocks. He grabbed Tidepiecer. Another impact followed. Then another. Water exploded upward. A creature crawled from the sea. It resembled a crab, except its shell was nearly 2 meters wide. Black armor covered its body. Jagged claws snapped hard enough to crush stone. The system identified it as a low-level armored reef crab. Dangerous to unprepared humans. Potential resources included meat, shell, and ocean essence. Ethan tightened his grip. The crab charged. He stepped aside. A claw slammed into the ground. Ethan drove Tidepiercer downward. The black spearhead punched through the creature's shell. Resistance lasted less than a second. The weapon had been designed for exactly this. The crab spasmed. Ethan twisted the spear. The creature collapsed. Silence returned. His breathing was heavy. This was the first thing he had killed since arriving. There was no time to process it. Golden light appeared over the corpse. The crab belonged to him now, which meant every part of it could be upgraded. Ethan dragged the body away from the shore. He separated the meat, the shell, the ocean essence crystal hidden inside its body. He upgraded the meat first. Ordinary monster flesh transformed into nutrient-rich tidebeast meat, capable of strengthening the body when consumed regularly. The shell became 100-year black reef armor material. Then Ethan picked up the tiny ocean essence crystal. It was barely larger than a fingernail. Upgrade. The crystal flashed. When the light disappeared, Ethan's expression hardened. The system identified it as a condensed ocean evolution core. It could enhance marine structures, aquatic creatures, or coastal territory. Ethan slowly looked toward the ocean surrounding his island. Coastal territory. He walked to the shoreline and activated the core. The sea roared. Black rock erupted around the southern coast. Natural reefs expanded beneath the water. Jagged stone formations created a defensive barrier around nearly half the island. Small tidal pools formed between them. Then something else appeared. Life. Tiny shellfish clung to the rocks. Seaweed emerged underwater. Small fish began gathering inside the protected pools. Ethan's island had just acquired its first natural marine ecosystem. The system evaluated the new feature: primordial tide reef, defensive coastal terrain, natural seafood production, minor resistance against storm surges, chance of attracting rare aquatic resources. Ethan stared across the darkening ocean. Every attack against him could become an upgrade. Every disaster could become an opportunity. Every worthless resource could become treasure. Then the sky turned green. The real storm arrived. Rain slammed into the ocean like millions of needles. Wind screamed. Lightning tore through the clouds. Across the regional channel, distress messages appeared faster than anyone could read them. Freshwater contaminated. Cropsters collapsing. Livestock dying. One island lord disappeared from the channel entirely after a wave destroyed his shelter. Marcus stopped boasting. He begged for construction materials. Ethan remained inside his fortress. Rain hammered the reinforced roof. The structure didn't move. His stored water remained pure. His crops bent beneath the wind but refused to die. The primordial soil neutralized the poison faster than the storm could saturate it. The tide reef broke the largest waves before they reached shore. Ethan cooked upgraded crab meat over an emberwood fire while civilization outside collapsed. Then another announcement arrived. The system had begun calculating disaster performance. Survivors would receive rewards according to preparation, resource preservation, territory stability, and disaster resistance. Ethan's score climbed. 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000. The numbers accelerated. His ranking shot upward. 900, 400, 100, 37, 5. Then it stopped. Regional Disaster Resistance Ranking, first place. Ethan Vale, the same man whose island had ranked 10,000th, only days earlier now stood above everyone. The regional channel became completely silent. Even Marcus said nothing. Then the global system issued a special notification. The first-place survivor had achieved an impossible-grade disaster resistance evaluation. A unique reward would be issued after the storm. Ethan leaned back in his chair, but before he could enjoy the moment, a sound came from beneath the island. Boom. He stood boom. The floor vibrated. This wasn't thunder. Something was hitting the island from below. The spirit spring began glowing. The tide reef trembled. A third impact cracked several stones near the shore. Then an enormous shadow passed beneath the water. It circled Ethan's island once, twice. The system finally identified it. Ethan's expression disappeared. The creature wasn't low level. It wasn't even supposed to appear in the beginner region. The corrosive storm had awakened something sleeping beneath the archipelago. An abyssal island devourer. A juvenile. Its body was larger than Ethan's entire original island. The system issued an emergency warning. Survivors encountering this creature were advised to abandon exposed territory immediately. Ethan stared at the enormous shadow beneath the waves. Then he looked at Tidepiercer in his hand. A thought entered his mind. If a 2-meter crab became valuable after one upgrade, what would happen if he killed something capable of eating islands? The shadow turned. 2 enormous eyes opened beneath the black water. Then the monster charged directly toward his shore. The abyssal island devourer hit the reef like a living mountain. The first impact shattered half a dozen outer rocks. The second sent black seawater surging over the shoreline. By the third, Ethan understood something important. His island could survive the storm. It could survive poison rain. It could survive waves. But if that thing reached the foundation directly, none of that would matter. The monster did not bite like an animal. It consumed territory. Every time its armored mouth scraped across submerged rock, entire sections vanished. Not broken. Gone, eaten. Ethan tightened his grip on Tidepiercer and ran toward the southern reef. Wind tore at his clothes. Corrosive rain struck his skin like burning needles. The sky flashed green-white. Another enormous shadow surged beneath the water. The creature rose. For the first time, Ethan saw its head clearly. It resembled some nightmare combination of whale, turtle, and deep-sea predator. Layered black plates covered its skull. Its mouth opened vertically, revealing multiple rows of crushing teeth. Fragments of stone were still lodged between them. The system repeated its warning. Direct combat was not recommended. Retreat was advised. Ethan almost laughed. Retreat where? There was nothing but ocean. The monster lunged. Ethan jumped sideways. Its jaws closed around a section of reef. Stone exploded. The primordial tide reef resisted, but only barely. Ethan drove Tidepiercer toward the creature's eye. The spear struck. A metallic shock ran through his arms. The tip penetrated only a few centimeters. Too shallow, the monster jerked its head. Ethan was thrown backward. He crashed into wet stone and nearly lost consciousness. Pain exploded through his ribs. Tidepiercer landed several meters away. The devourer turned, one massive eye fixed on him. It had recognized the threat. Good, that meant it could be distracted. Ethan pushed himself upright. His fortress stood behind him. His farms lay farther inland. The spirit spring continued flowing. Everything he had built depended on stopping this thing here. He grabbed Tidepiercer. Then a new thought came. He could not upgrade the spear again, but the monster had damaged it. The shaft now carried a deep fracture. Did that make it a different resource? He touched the crack. Same object. Same upgrade history. Ethan cursed under his breath. The devourer charged again. This time, Ethan didn't aim for the head. He drove the spear beneath one of the creature's exposed jaw plates. The weapon sank deeper. Black blood erupted. The devourer roared. The sound was powerful that the surrounding water vibrated. Ethan ripped the spear free and ran. The monster followed. Exactly as he wanted. He sprinted along the southern shoreline, moving toward the densest part of the tide reef. The devourer's huge body couldn't maneuver easily between the rocks. It smashed through them instead. Every impact slowed it. Every broken reef gave Ethan another second. Then the first hidden advantage appeared. The natural tidal pools created by the reef had filled with concentrated corrosive rainwater. Normally, that would be disastrous. But the primordial island had partially neutralized the poison. Not completely. The resulting liquid remained highly irritating. Ethan kicked one of the shallow stone barriers apart. A surge of green water poured into the devourer's wounded jaw. The reaction was immediate. The creature convulsed. Its black blood began smoking. Ethan's eyes narrowed. So its armor was resistant. Its wounds were not. He changed tactics. No more trying to penetrate the skull. He needed to create one opening, then exploit it. The devourer attacked again. Ethan allowed it to come closer than before. Too close. Its mouth opened. The stench of rotten seawater and mineral dust poured over him. At the final moment, Ethan jumped onto a raised reef pillar. The jaws missed. He slammed Tide Piercer downward into the soft tissue behind the eye. The spear penetrated nearly half a meter. The monster screamed. Ethan twisted. Then he jumped away. The devourer thrashed violently. Its tail struck the reef. A wall of water smashed Ethan into the shoreline. His vision went black for a second. When he opened his eyes, blood ran from his forehead. One arm felt numb. The spear was gone, still embedded in the creature. Bad. The devourer turned toward the island. It no longer cared about Ethan. It wanted to destroy his territory. The monster opened its mouth and bit into the coast. The primordial island trembled. A warning flashed. Territory integrity had decreased. Ethan forced himself upright. No weapon, no time. Then he saw something near his feet. A broken section of reef, ordinary stone before evolution, now part of the primordial tide reef. The fragment had been severed from the main formation by the monster's attack. Independent ownership recognized. Ethan touched it. Golden light appeared. Upgrade available. His exhaustion vanished beneath adrenaline. He activated it. The broken rock transformed. Its black surface deepened into a metallic sheen. Sharp ridges grew along one side. The system identified it as hundredfold abyss-breaking reefstone, extremely dense, highly resistant to marine pressure, naturally disruptive to certain aquatic energy structures. Ethan lifted it. Heavy, almost too heavy. Perfect. The devourer was still tearing into the shoreline. Ethan climbed onto its jaw. The creature felt him and jerked violently. He nearly fell. His fingers dug between armor plates. He pulled himself upward. Tide Piercer still protruded behind the eye. The wound around it was bleeding heavily. Ethan raised the abyss-breaking reefstone with both hands, then slammed it down once. Twice, 3 times, the stone struck the spear shaft. Each impact drove Tide Piercer deeper. The monster convulsed. Ethan kept hammering. The spear disappeared almost entirely into its skull. The creature's eye rolled. Its movements became chaotic. Then Ethan heard a crack, not from the spear, from inside the monster. The devourer froze. For 1 second, everything became silent except the storm. Then its enormous body collapsed sideways into the reef. A tidal wave surged across the island. Ethan was thrown into the water. He fought his way back to shore. His entire body shook. The monster did not move. The system waited. 1 second, 2, then the announcement came. The Abyssal Island Devourer had been killed. Solo elimination confirmed. Impossible grade beginner combat achievement completed. Ethan collapsed onto the wet stone. He laughed, not because it was funny, because the alternative was probably passing out. The global announcement did not immediately reveal his name, but the regional system had no such restraint. Ethan Vale had slain an Abyssal Island Devourer. The regional communication channel detonated. No one believed it. Some accused the system of malfunctioning. Others demanded proof. Marcus said nothing. Ethan didn't care. He crawled toward the corpse. Ownership transferred. That was all he needed. The Devourer contained enough resources to change everything. He began with the blood. Most of it had dispersed into the ocean, but thick black liquid remained trapped between the armor plates. He collected several containers. Upgrade. The black fluid transformed into abyssal vital essence, a concentrated biological resource capable of strengthening compatible organisms and accelerating certain evolutionary processes. Next came the meat. He cut only a small piece because even that required enormous effort. Upgrade. The flesh transformed into primordial sea titan meat. Consumption could greatly improve physical strength and endurance. Excessive consumption was dangerous for weak bodies. Ethan stared at the description. He cooked a piece. The smell alone was intense, not unpleasant dense. Rich. He ate 1 bite. Heat exploded through his body. His injured ribs stopped aching almost instantly. His numb arm regained feeling. His heartbeat became thunderous. Ethan stopped eating. Too powerful. He stored the rest. Then came the armor. He broke off a damaged plate the size of a table. Upgrade. The shell darkened until it resembled obsidian metal. 100-fold abyssal fortress carapace, extremely resistant to impact, pressure, corrosion, and marine energy. Suitable for defensive construction, advanced armor, and high-tier shipbuilding. Ethan looked toward his fortress, then toward the ocean. Shipbuilding. That word stayed in his mind. Eventually, island lords would need to leave their territory. Trade, exploration, war. A vessel made from this material could become terrifying. But the most valuable resource remained inside the monster. Ethan cut deeper. Hours passed, the storm continued raging. He used iron tools, then upgraded tools, then the abyss-breaking reefstone. Finally, he reached the creature's core. It was larger than his head, dark blue, almost black. Light pulsed inside it like a heartbeat. The system identified it as a juvenile abyssal territory core. Normally, it could be used to strengthen island foundations or create a small marine domain. Ethan touched it. Golden light erupted so violently that he had to shield his eyes. When the transformation ended, the core had become transparent. Inside it floated a miniature ocean, hundredfold primordial ocean domain core, capable of permanently integrating a marine domain into owned territory. Potential effects included territorial expansion beneath the sea, enhanced marine resource generation, natural protection against oceanic disasters, attraction of rare aquatic life, and foundation evolution. Ethan's breathing slowed. This was not merely a resource. This was territory. He carried the core toward the center of the island. The storm weakened around dawn. Across the region, survivors emerged from broken shelters. Many had lost crops. Some had lost fresh water. Others had lost entire sections of shoreline. Ethan activated the core. The island shook harder than before. But this time the ocean changed too. The water surrounding Ethan's territory began rotating. Not violently, systematically, like an enormous invisible hand was rearranging the sea. The primordial tide reef expanded. New submerged rock formations appeared. Deep trenches formed. Shallow lagoons emerged near the coast. Seaweed forests grew across the underwater stone. Schools of fish appeared. Shellfish multiplied. Coral-like structures rose from the seabed. Then the territory boundary expanded. Not above water, below it. Ethan's island now controlled a vast surrounding marine zone. The system named it the primordial ocean domain. His land area had barely changed. His usable territory had multiplied several times. And because the domain technically belonged to him, everything born within it could potentially become an upgrade target. Ethan stood at the shore and stared into the water. Fish, shellfish, coral, minerals, maybe pearls, maybe rare creatures. The ocean itself had become his farm. Then the disaster ended. Green clouds separated. Sunlight returned. The regional survival system began calculating final results. Thousands had entered the storm. Hundreds had barely survived. Dozens had lost nearly everything. Several names disappeared permanently. The ranking appeared. First place, Ethan Vale. Impossible grade evaluation. Territory preservation exceeded 100% because his territory had actually expanded during the disaster. Resource preservation exceeded 100%. Food production increased during the disaster. Freshwater purity remained perfect. Combat achievement included elimination of an abnormal marine predator. Total evaluation exceeded the ordinary scoring range. The system paused, then issued a special reward. A mythic disaster chest appeared inside Ethan's fortress. He stared at it. The same thought returned. It belonged to him. Upgrade available. Ethan did not hesitate. Golden light swallowed the chest. When it disappeared, the container before him no longer looked like something created for beginners. It was made of pale material resembling bone. Ocean blue patterns moved across its surface. The system struggled to identify it. Hundredfold mythic disaster treasury. Guaranteed high-tier reward. Guaranteed territorial reward. Guaranteed advanced blueprint. Chance of unique living resource. Chance of authority fragment. Ethan opened it. The first item was a blueprint. Primordial harbor fortress. A structure combining dock, warehouse, defensive walls, shipyard, watchtower, and marine resource processing. The second item was a bag of seeds, only 10, silver-colored. The system identified them as moonreese, a rare grain capable of storing natural energy. Ethan immediately imagined what the upgraded version might become. The third item was an egg black, covered in blue lines. A marine creature egg, unknown species. The fourth item made him stop breathing. A tiny golden fragment floated inside a glass sphere, authority fragment, territory manipulation. It could permanently unlock limited control over terrain within owned territory. Ethan touched the sphere, upgrade available. He activated it. The golden fragment multiplied in brilliance. The system notification changed. Hundredfold territory authority fragment. Upon absorption, the user would gain intermediate territorial manipulation. Ethan absorbed it. Pain struck instantly. He dropped to one knee. Information poured into his mind. Soil, rock, elevation, water channels, coastlines, terrain structure. He could feel the island beneath him. Not metaphorically, actually feel it. Every stone, every root, every channel through which water moved underground. Ethan lifted one hand. The ground ahead of him rose slowly. A low wall of soil formed. He lowered his hand. The wall sank again. His eyes widened. This was no longer survival. This was construction without tools. He could reshape owned land directly. The ability required stamina. Large changes were expensive. But even limited control was absurd. He immediately redesigned the island. Drainage channels became deeper. Agricultural fields became terraced. The Spirit Spring received stone-lined irrigation paths. The northern shoreline rose slightly to resist waves. The southern reef connected with a defensive embankment. He created a flat zone for the future harbor fortress. Every action made the territory more efficient. His public island ranking surged again. 300, 112, 17, then 9. Regional island ranking 9th place. Marcus finally sent a message. No threat this time, he asked to cooperate. Ethan ignored it. Marcus sent another. Ethan paused. That was actually useful. Animals were one category Ethan lacked, he responded. One healthy chicken. In exchange, Marcus would receive 5 ordinary tomatoes. Marcus immediately agreed. The trade completed. A brown hen appeared inside a temporary enclosure. It looked confused. Ethan looked delighted. Ownership recognized. Upgrade. Golden light surrounded the chicken. The bird grew slightly larger. Its feathers became glossy copper red. The system identified it as a 100-fold vitality hen. Enhanced health, accelerated egg production. Improved meat quality. Eggs possessed enhanced nutrition. Small chance of producing evolution-compatible offspring. Ethan stared at the hen. The hen stared back, then laid an egg. Ethan picked it up. New resource. Upgrade available. He laughed. By the end of the day, he had 3 upgraded eggs. He chose not to eat them. He incubated them. Living systems were more valuable than food. Marcus had unknowingly traded away a future bloodline for 5 tomatoes. The next week passed differently from the first. The region was no longer equal. Survivors now understood scarcity. Water became political. Food became leverage. Metal became strategic. Island size became status. Alliances formed. Small groups began cooperating. Marcus gathered 37 island lords into something called the Dawn Fleet. They pooled wood, food, and manpower. Other coalitions appeared. The Blue Tide Union, the Harvest Circle, the Iron Banner. Ethan joined none. He traded with everyone. He revealed little. His island continued growing. Moon reefs transformed under his upgrade into Starfall spirit grain. The stalks shimmered at night. Eating the cooked grain provided sustained energy. The leftover husks could be used as high-quality animal feed. His vitality hen hatched offspring. Those offspring could be upgraded again. One evolved into an iron-crest warfowl, a powerful bird nearly waist-high, with dense feathers and aggressive instincts. Ethan stopped laughing at the chicken trade after that. The marine egg hatched too. A small blue creature emerged. It resembled an otter with fin-like ears and a long-scaled tail. The system called it a tide mink. Its natural talent was diving. Ethan upgraded it. The small animal transformed into a deep-water treasure mink. It could detect valuable submerged resources. Within hours, it returned carrying a pearl. Ordinary upgrade. The pearl became a luminous spirit pearl. Highly valuable. Ethan traded one fragment of it for enough ordinary construction materials to finish the primordial harbor fortress. The structure rose along the western coast. Stone piers extended into the ocean. A shipyard occupied one side. Warehouses lined the interior. Defensive towers overlooked the sea. The harbor alone was larger than Ethan's original island. When construction completed, the system updated the ranking. 3rd place. The entire region went silent again. Everyone knew his name now. The dead island survivor had reached 3rd place in less than 2 weeks. Marcus requested an alliance. Ethan declined. The next day, Marcus requested a non-aggression pact. Ethan accepted. Not because he feared him, because Marcus still possessed resources worth buying. Then the global announcement changed everything. Beginner protection would end in 7 days. Ocean travel restrictions would be removed. Island warfare would become possible. Territorial conquest would unlock. Defeated islands could be annexed. The regional communication channel erupted. Alliances immediately became military organizations. Ships began construction. Weapons prices soared. Food stockpiles vanished from the market. Marcus sent Ethan another message. This one was different. The Dawn Fleet had grown to 63 members. He offered Ethan the position of vice leader. Ethan refused. Marcus warned him that independent island lords would become targets. Ethan agreed, then closed the conversation. Because he knew Marcus was correct. independent island lords would become targets, especially rich ones, especially isolated ones, especially him. So Ethan walked into the primordial harbor shipyard. He placed one hand on the construction platform. The Devourer's upgraded carapace remained stacked inside the warehouse. Emberwood filled another section. Refined iron waited beside it. Reef stone. Ocean essence. Every resource was far beyond beginner grade. Ethan selected the largest ship blueprint currently available. An ordinary coastal combat vessel. Then he upgraded the blueprint. Golden light erupted. The paper became black. Silver lines spread across it. The system identified the result. Hundredfold Leviathan-class dreadship blueprint. Ethan stared at the required materials. He had nearly all of them. The system warning continued. 7 days until war. Across the ocean, dozens of islands were building wooden boats. Marcus's Dawn fleet intended to launch 23 combat vessels. The Blue Tide Union had 16. The Iron Banner had 12 reinforced ships. Ethan had one. He looked at the blueprint again. One would be enough. For the next 7 days, Ethan turned his island into a weapon. The Leviathan-class dreadship blueprint was far beyond anything the beginner region should have possessed. Its hull required materials that ordinary survivors would spend months gathering. Its internal structure demanded reinforced metal, high-density timber, marine essence, pressure-resistant plating, and a specialized propulsion core. For anyone else, constructing it before beginner protection ended would have been impossible. Ethan had already accumulated nearly everything. He began with the hull. Hundreds of pieces of Emberwood were shaped inside the primordial harbor shipyard. Unlike ordinary timber, the upgraded wood resisted salt, pressure, flame, and rot. Ethan reinforced the outer frame with abyssal fortress carapace cut from the dead island Devourer. The black plates overlapped across the hull like dragon scales. Next came the metal skeleton. His rich iron vein produced more ore every day. Low-grade ore became refined iron. Refined iron became high-purity alloy after upgrading newly forged components individually. Every beam became stronger. Every joint became harder to break. Every piece of the ship became something nobody else in the region could reproduce. But the dreadship's core remained unfinished. The blueprint required a marine propulsion crystal powerful enough to move the enormous vessel. Ethan didn't possess one. So he sent the deepwater treasure mink into the primordial ocean domain. The little creature disappeared beneath the waves. An hour passed, then 2. Near sunset it returned. Something large dragged behind it. A dead creature floated near the dock. It resembled a ray with a translucent body and 6 fin-like wings. The system identified it as a current glider, low-level marine beast. Its body contained a weak current core capable of generating minor water propulsion. Ethan stared at the corpse, then at the dreadship. Perfect, he extracted the core. It was small, cracked, nearly depleted upgrade. Golden light flooded the shipyard. The weak crystal transformed into a deep ocean current heart. A high-density propulsion core capable of manipulating surrounding water currents and generating sustained marine thrust. The dreadship accepted it. The shipyard shook. Water around the dock began rotating. The massive black vessel moved for the first time. Only slightly, but Ethan smiled. It was alive. 3 days remained. Meanwhile, the entire regional balance shifted. Marcus's Dawn fleet had become the largest alliance. 83 island lords, 31 operational ships, more than 200 combatants. The Blue Tide Union controlled 62 islands. The Iron Banner controlled 41. Smaller survivors desperately joined whichever organization promised protection. Ethan remained alone. The communication channel increasingly treated that as madness. Some survivors admired him. Others mocked him. Most believed that no matter how wealthy one island became, one person couldn't defeat an alliance. Marcus publicly repeated the same argument. He announced that independent island lords would have one final chance to join the Dawn fleet before protection ended. Ethan read the message while installing a weapon onto the dreadship. It wasn't a cannon. The beginner system hadn't introduced gunpowder technology. Instead, the Leviathan blueprint used tension-powered siege launchers. Ordinary versions fired heavy bolts. Ethan's version used an upgraded mechanism capable of launching enormous reefstone spears. He built 4. One mounted at the bow, one at the stern, 2 along the sides. Then he created ammunition. Fragments of primordial tide reef were intentionally separated. Each fragment became an independent resource. Each was upgraded. Hundredfold abyss-breaking reefstone. The shipyard carved them into massive projectiles. A direct hit could punch through ordinary wooden hulls like paper. Ethan stored 27. That was more than enough, but he still wasn't satisfied. The ship was powerful, too powerful for beginner fleets. Yet fleets had numbers. If 30 enemy vessels surrounded him, even a dreadship could eventually be overwhelmed. So Ethan searched for another advantage. The answer came from something he had ignored: the primordial ocean domain. He could feel territorial energy through his hundredfold territory authority. On land, he could reshape soil and stone. Underwater, the same authority worked differently. He couldn't control the ocean itself, but he could shape the seabed, raise reefs, create trenches, move submerged rock. Ethan spent an entire day redesigning the waters surrounding his island. He created narrow, safe channels only he understood. Beneath the surface, hidden reef barriers formed. False approaches led into shallow stone fields. Deep channels curved toward the harbor. Any hostile fleet approaching recklessly would enter a maze. To outsiders, the sea looked normal. It wasn't. His island now possessed underwater walls. 2 days remained. Marcus contacted Ethan privately again. This time, his tone was polite. He proposed a permanent trade agreement. The Dawn fleet would protect Ethan's island. Ethan would provide enhanced food, metal, and shipbuilding materials. Ethan asked what percentage Marcus wanted. 30. Ethan declined. Marcus reduced it to 20. Ethan declined. 10. Ethan still declined. Marcus finally asked what Ethan wanted. Ethan answered simply, nothing. The conversation ended. 1 day remained. The atmosphere across the region became suffocating. Ships gathered around Alliance headquarters. Weapons were distributed. Targets were discussed openly. Some weaker islands were already negotiating surrender before combat even unlocked. Ethan used the final day to finish his dreadship. At sunset, the system recognized completion. Leviathan-class dreadship. Length nearly 40 meters, reinforced abyssal hulls. Deep ocean current heart propulsion. 4 heavy reef breaker launchers. Integrated storage. Fortified command deck. Marine energy circulation. Resistance against ordinary fire, collision, corrosion, and low-level sea beast attacks. Ethan stood on the dock. The black ship towered above him. Dark plating covered the hull. Emberwood formed the deck. The bow curved forward like the head of some ancient predator. The dreadship looked less like something built by a survivor and more like a war relic recovered from a lost civilization. The regional system detected it. Ship ranking updated. First, Ethan Vale. Leviathan. Every communication channel exploded. Marcus demanded to know how Ethan had constructed such a vessel. The Blue Tide Union immediately offered an alliance. The Iron Banner offered rare metal. Several smaller groups offered permanent tribute. Ethan declined everything. The clock reached midnight. Beginner protection ended. The ocean changed. Invisible barriers surrounding every island dissolved. Navigation restrictions vanished. Combat permissions unlocked. Territorial conquest activated. For a few minutes, nobody moved. Then the first battle began. 2 minor islands near the eastern region attacked each other. Another fleet sailed against an abandoned island. The Iron Banner absorbed 3 small territories without resistance. Messages flooded the channel. Then Marcus made his move. The Dawn fleet didn't attack Ethan. Not immediately. Instead, they sailed toward a cluster of independent islands between Ethan and Dawn territory. Within 6 hours, 7 surrendered. Both lost. Marcus's alliance grew. By midday, Dawn controlled nearly 100 islands. Their ranking rose to first among regional factions. Then Marcus announced a new policy. All islands within Dawn's designated security zone were required to join the alliance or pay protection tribute. Ethan's island was inside that zone. The demand arrived privately. 20% of food production, 20% of metal, 10% of rare resources, access to Ethan's harbor during wartime. Ethan rejected it. Marcus replied almost instantly. Then Dawn would consider Ethan's island hostile. Ethan closed the message. He had expected this. Marcus could tolerate independence while Ethan was weak. He could tolerate wealth while Ethan remained useful. He could not tolerate a solitary island becoming stronger than his alliance. That night, the treasure mink returned from patrol behaving strangely. It chirped repeatedly. Ethan followed it to the northern watchtower. Far beyond the reef, tiny silhouettes moved against the moonlit water. Ships. Many, he counted, 10, 20, 30 more. The Dawn fleet. Marcus had brought nearly everything. 34 combat vessels. Several transport boats. Hundreds of fighters. Ethan stood at the top of the tower without expression. Marcus didn't intend to negotiate. He intended to make an example. The regional communication channel came alive. Marcus publicly declared that Ethan had repeatedly rejected fair cooperation and had endangered regional stability by hoarding strategic resources. He announced an enforcement operation. Most people understood what that meant. The Dawn Fleet wanted Ethan's island, his harbor, his iron, his farms, his secrets. Marcus sent one final private message. Surrender peacefully, keep your life. Become a Dawn administrator. Refuse and lose everything. Ethan looked toward the approaching fleet, then toward Leviathan. He answered with one sentence. Come and take it, Marcus did. The fleet advanced before dawn. 34 ships formed a crescent across the northern sea. They were primitive compared with Leviathan, but numbers gave them confidence. Some had large crossbows. Several had reinforced rams. Marcus's flagship traveled in the center. It was the largest ordinary ship Ethan had seen, painted white. 3 sails, dozens of fighters. The regional channel filled with spectators. Everyone expected Ethan to remain behind his reef and defend the island. Instead, the harbor gates opened. Leviathan sailed out alone. People thought he was insane. 1 ship against 34. Marcus clearly thought the same. He ordered his formation wider, surround Ethan, attack from multiple directions, prevent retreat, exactly what Ethan wanted. Leviathan entered the northern approach. The enemy fleet followed. Then the first Dawn ship struck something beneath the water. Its hull lifted violently. Wood cracked. Men fell overboard. The captain screamed that they had hit a reef. Another vessel turned to avoid it. It struck a second hidden barrier. Then a third ship became trapped in unexpectedly shallow water. Marcus realized too late. The battlefield had been prepared. Ethan stood at Leviathan's bow. He raised one hand. Territory authority responded. Beneath the water, the seabed moved. A submerged reef wall rose behind the Dawn fleet. Their retreat path narrowed. Panic spread. Marcus shouted orders, advance, break through. Destroy Leviathan first. 5 ships charged. Ethan touched the first reef breaker control. The bow launcher released. A 2-meter abyss-breaking projectile crossed the water. It struck the lead ship. The reinforced wooden hull exploded inward. The projectile passed through one side and out the other. Water poured inside. The ship began sinking immediately. Silence swept across the communication channel. Then Ethan fired again. The second projectile smashed through a mast and deck. The third shattered a fleet assembly. The Dawn formation broke. Marcus ordered his archers to fire. Hundreds of arrows darkened the sky. They struck Leviathan. Most bounced from the carapace plating. Others embedded harmlessly into the reinforced deck. A few reached Ethan. He stepped behind the command barrier. The dreadship continued advancing. 2 enemy vessels attempted to ram from opposite sides. Ethan waited. Closer. At the final moment, the deep ocean current heart activated. Water surged beneath Leviathan. The dreadship accelerated impossibly fast. The 2 Dawn ships missed. They collided with each other. Leviathan turned. Its reinforced side smashed into both. Wood disintegrated. Men jumped into the sea. Ethan did not pursue them. He wanted ships disabled, not unnecessary deaths. Marcus did not share that restraint. He ordered swimmers abandoned. The fleet pressed forward. Ethan's eyes became colder. So that was the kind of leader Marcus was. Fine. He changed strategy. The port launcher fired. A Dawn vessel split near the waterline. The stern launcher disabled another. The starboard launcher destroyed a ram. 6 ships were already out of combat. Then Marcus revealed his own hidden card. His flagship opened its lower deck. A massive metal-headed bolt launcher appeared. The weapon fired. The projectile struck Leviathan's side. For the first time, the dreadship shook violently. The carapace plating cracked. Ethan immediately understood. Marcus had acquired an upgraded weapon somehow. Not his level of upgrade, but enough to cause damage. The flagship fired again. Ethan turned Leviathan. The bolt missed. Marcus laughed across the public channel. He announced that Ethan wasn't the only person with rare resources. Then 20 remaining Dawn ships advanced together. Ethan looked at the tactical layout. He could continue firing, but ammunition was limited. He needed to break morale. Not every hull. So he steered Leviathan directly toward Marcus's flagship. The ocean roared beneath the deep current heart. The black dreadship accelerated. Marcus ordered every nearby ship to intercept. Ethan raised his hand. Territory authority surged. The seabed beneath 3 intercepting vessels rose sharply. Stone erupted under their hulls. 2 became trapped. The third tilted enough to throw half its crew into the sea. Leviathan passed between them. Marcus's flagship fired. Ethan turned slightly. The bolt scraped across the bow armor. Black plating cracked, still moving 200 meters. 150. Marcus's crew realized what was happening. He was going to ram them. They tried to turn too slow. Leviathan's abyssal bow struck the flagship. The sound was monstrous. Wood snapped. The white hull folded inward. Marcus was thrown across the deck. Leviathan continued pushing. The flagship rotated sideways. Ethan leapt across the gap. He landed on Marcus's deck carrying Tidepiercer. Dozens of fighters stared at him. Marcus climbed to his feet. He was larger than Ethan remembered. Heavy armor covered his chest. A broadsword rested in his hand. Marcus smiled. He had wanted this, a direct fight. He believed Ethan's power came from resources. Not combat ability, he charged. The sword descended. Ethan blocked with Tidepiercer. Metal screamed. Marcus was strong. Far stronger than an ordinary human. He had probably consumed enhanced food or some body-strengthening reward. He swung again. Ethan stepped aside. The blade cut through the railing. Marcus laughed and pressed forward. Ethan retreated 3 steps, then stopped. Marcus raised the sword with both hands. Ethan thrust. Tidepiercer moved faster. The spear point struck beneath Marcus's shoulder armor. Not deep enough, Marcus staggered. Ethan kicked his knee. The Alliance leader fell. Tidepiercer's point rested against his throat. The entire battle seemed to freeze. Marcus stared upward. He couldn't understand. He had brought 34 ships, hundreds of people, weapons. Numbers, political power. Ethan had brought 1 ship. And now Marcus was on his knees. The conquest system detected the defeat condition. The flagship captain had been subdued. Marcus's personal island was vulnerable to annexation if Ethan accepted the territorial challenge. A choice appeared. Ethan could kill Marcus, force surrender, demand resources, or initiate island seizure. Marcus's face went pale. He finally understood what Ethan had meant weeks earlier. His island was not an enemy. It was a resource package. Ethan chose seizure. The system confirmed the conquest. Marcus Kane's origin island transferred ownership. 180,000 square meters of fertile land. Freshwater source. Coconut grove. Storage structures. Basic shipyard. Residential facilities. Ethan felt the new territory connect to his authority from dozens of kilometers away. Ownership recognized. His golden ability responded. The entire conquered island was a newly acquired resource. Upgrade available. Ethan looked down at Marcus, then he smiled. Marcus had spent weeks building the best island he possibly could. Now Ethan was about to make it 100 times better. The moment ownership transferred, Ethan felt Marcus's island. Not saw it, felt it. Through the 100-fold territory authority, the distant land appeared inside his awareness like a second heartbeat. Rich freshwater, coconut trees, livestock, warehouses, dozens of people. For weeks, Marcus had ruled the place as the center of the Dawn Fleet. Now every grain of soil belonged to Ethan. Marcus remained on his knees aboard the shattered flagship. His surviving captains stared in horror. They had expected defeat to mean tribute, perhaps humiliation, perhaps a forced alliance. None of them had imagined Marcus could lose the very island beneath his empire. Then the system delivered something worse. Because Ethan had acquired the territory through conquest, the land was now recognized as a completely new possession. His golden authority reacted. Upgrade available. Ethan activated it. Far beyond the battlefield, Marcus's island began to change. The Dawn Fleet members stationed there screamed as the earth trembled. Coconut trees grew thicker, their trunks darkened, roots drove deeper. The ordinary freshwater spring expanded into a luminous pool. Fertile soil became dark gold. Stone beneath the island compressed and strengthened. Livestock cried out as natural energy surged through the territory. Warehouses reinforced themselves. The coastline widened. The entire island seemed to inhale. Ethan felt the transformation through his authority. Marcus felt only terror. His former island had evolved into something the system identified as a 100-fold verdant war island. Agricultural growth increased dramatically. Livestock health and reproduction increased. Natural defenses strengthened. Food production multiplied. The freshwater source evolved. The island gained accelerated structural recovery. And because Marcus had spent weeks gathering workers, animals, seeds, and infrastructure, the upgrade magnified all of it. Ethan had not conquered an island. He had conquered a fully developed foundation. Then multiplied its value. Marcus stared at him. For the first time, there was no arrogance in his expression. Only disbelief. He asked what Ethan was. Ethan pulled Tidepiercer away from his throat. Someone who had started with nothing. That answer frightened Marcus more than any boast could have. The Dawn Fleet surrendered. Not all of them willingly. A few captains attempted to flee. Ethan allowed them. Destroying every ship would waste resources. Killing every fighter would waste manpower. The conquest system gave him better options. Any Dawn Island lord who had directly participated in the attack could negotiate separately. Some swore neutrality. Some offered tribute, 11 surrendered their islands voluntarily in exchange for protection. Ethan accepted only 4. He did not want uncontrolled expansion. Territory was useful only if it could be defended and managed. The 4 selected islands possessed resources he lacked. One had bamboo forests. One had limestone cliffs. One had livestock. Each newly acquired island received the same treatment. Upgrade. The clay island evolved into a high-grade ceramic resource territory. The bamboo island transformed into a dense iron bamboo grove, whose stalks were harder than common wood and grew absurdly fast. The limestone cliffs became white fortress stone deposits. The livestock island gained enriched grassland and improved breeding conditions. By sunset, Ethan controlled 5 islands directly. His rankings changed so quickly that the system refreshed multiple times. Regional Island Lord Ranking, 1st place. Regional Military Power Ranking, 1st place. Regional Resource Potential Ranking, 1st place. Regional Territorial Development Ranking, 1st place. The dead island survivor had become the strongest power in the region, and everyone had watched it happen. The regional communication channel changed instantly. People who had mocked Ethan now congratulated him. People who had ignored him requested trade. People who had threatened him suddenly spoke about friendship. The Blue Tide Union offered a mutual defense pact. The Iron Banner offered exclusive access to metal resources. Several independent island lords requested citizenship. Ethan accepted none immediately. Power attracted opportunity. It also attracted parasites. He returned to Leviathan and ordered the damaged Dawn ships to follow him back to the primordial harbor. Marcus came too, not as a prisoner in chains, as a defeated island lord under temporary restriction. That distinction mattered. Ethan had no interest in revenge for a few insults. Marcus had attacked him. Marcus had lost, the debt had been paid. What mattered now was usefulness. Inside the harbor, Ethan inspected the captured fleet. 28 vessels remained recoverable. Most were ordinary wooden ships. Low quality, poorly reinforced. Several carried damaged weapons. To the Dawn fleet, they represented weeks of labor. To Ethan, they represented upgrade material. He selected the best surviving combat vessel. Ownership recognized. Upgrade. The ship disappeared beneath golden light. Its hull reinforced. Its sail structure changed. Metal fittings thickened. Storage expanded. The crude weapon platform transformed. When the light vanished, a sleek black and brown warship floated beside Leviathan. Not equal to the Dreadship, not even close, but far superior to anything ordinary alliances possessed. The system named it a 100-fold Raider frigate, faster than standard vessels, heavier armor, improved cargo, integrated bolt launchers, enhanced maneuverability. Ethan looked at the other captured ships. 27 more. For the first time, he understood that his true advantage in war was not merely strength. It was acquisition. Every enemy who attacked him brought resources into range, ships, weapons, tools, captured infrastructure. His opponents could spend weeks producing something. Ethan only needed to take ownership once, then improve it by 100-fold. War against him was investment. His enemies paid the capital. Ethan collected the return. Marcus watched from the dock. His face tightened when he saw the transformation. He finally understood the scale of what he had challenged. Ethan turned toward him, then offered him a job. Marcus thought he had misheard. Ethan repeated it. The former Dawn leader had flaws: arrogance, greed, overconfidence. But he had built the largest alliance in the region. In less than 2 weeks, he understood recruitment, negotiation, logistics. People followed him. That had value. Ethan did not need followers who worshipped him. He needed competent people whose incentives were clear. Marcus asked what position. Governor of the Verdant War Island, under Ethan. No independent military command, no conquest authority, no control over strategic warehouses, but full authority over agricultural development, civilian management, and trade administration. Marcus remained silent for a long time, then accepted. Some survivors called Ethan foolish when the news spread. Why trust the man who had just invaded him? Ethan didn't trust Marcus. Trust was unnecessary. Systems were better. Marcus's authority was restricted. Strategic resources were divided. Military forces answered to Ethan. Trade records were monitored. If Marcus betrayed him, he could be removed without threatening the entire network. And if he remained useful, both sides benefited. The next phase began immediately. Ethan created the Primordial Dominion. Not an alliance, a territorial federation. Island lords could join without surrendering ownership. They received trade access, military protection, and emergency food reserves. In exchange, they paid modest resource contributions and obeyed common laws against piracy, forced seizure, and internal warfare. Those who surrendered territory directly received stronger protection and development support. Ethan's terms were unexpectedly reasonable. That was intentional. Fear could conquer islands. Stability could conquer regions. Within 3 days, 27 independent island lords joined voluntarily. The Blue Tide Union became nervous. The Iron Banner became cautious. Neither attacked. Ethan didn't attack them either. He had something more important to do: expand production. The primordial harbor became the heart of the new network. Captured ships were repaired. Several were upgraded. Trade routes formed. The Verdant War Islands supplied food. The Iron Bamboo Island supplied construction material. The Ceramic Island produced containers, pipes, tiles, and furnaces. The White Fortress Island supplied defensive stone. Ethan's original island remained different. He renamed it Genesis Island. No settlers were allowed without permission. No ordinary trade vessels entered the inner harbor. No outsiders accessed the experimental farms. Because Genesis was no longer merely land, it was his laboratory. There, Ethan continued evolutionary breeding. Crimson Vitality fruit produced second-generation seeds. Those descendants were upgraded. The resulting plants became Blood Sun vines. Their fruit could accelerate recovery from exhaustion and minor injuries. Starfall Spirit Grain produced descendants. Upgraded again, they became Dawnstar rice, capable of slowly strengthening the body with repeated consumption. The Vitality Hen bloodline continued evolving. One branch became Massive Ironcrest warfowl, used as defensive livestock. Another became Golden Egg layers, producing nutrient-dense eggs every day. Even the deepwater treasure mink produced unexpected results. After several weeks of consuming upgraded marine food, it molted. Its fur became silver blue. Its detection radius expanded. Now it could sense not only treasure underwater, but hidden energy deposits within the seabed. Its first major discovery changed the Dominion. It led Ethan into the western section of the primordial ocean domain. Deep underwater, beneath layers of rock, lay a black mineral formation. The deposit was tiny. The system identified it as low-grade mana iron, a rare metal slightly more conductive to natural energy than ordinary iron. Ethan's pulse quickened. He extracted one fragment. Upgrade, the gray-black metal became deep blue. Silver lines moved across the surface. Hundredfold arcane tide steel, extremely durable, highly conductive to water and energy-based systems, suitable for advanced shipbuilding, weapons, armor, and energy devices. Ethan immediately thought of Leviathan. Its deep ocean current heart was powerful, but most of the dreadship's internal channels were still made from upgraded ordinary materials. If replaced with arcane tide steel, energy efficiency could rise dramatically. Then another thought followed. The system had not yet introduced advanced machinery, but it had never forbidden innovation. Blueprints were templates, not limits. Ethan created a research workshop inside Genesis Harbor. Blacksmiths from the Iron Banner were invited under strict contract. Shipwrights from former Dawn Islands joined them. Engineers from the Old World began experimenting. Most survivors had treated this world like a game. Gather wood, build shelter, follow blueprints. Ethan treated it like civilization. Within 2 weeks, the first arcane tide engine prototype was completed. It was crude, unstable, far weaker than Leviathan's main core, but it could propel a small boat without sails. That alone changed naval warfare. Wind no longer mattered. Direction no longer mattered. A ship could move when others stalled. The first prototype belonged to Ethan. Upgrade. Golden light swallowed it. When the transformation ended, the workshop fell silent. The device became compact, stable, far more powerful. The system named it a hundredfold tidal drive. It could propel medium vessels, consume processed marine essence, operate for long periods. Marcus stared at it, then at Ethan. He finally understood. Ethan wasn't building the strongest island. He was building the first industrial power. News spread. Not the full truth, only rumors, ships moving without sails. Food that restored stamina, stone walls resistant to corrosive storms, weapons capable of piercing reinforced hulls. Other regions began noticing Ethan's name on global rankings. The Endless Archipelago was vast. The beginner region represented only one small zone. Thousands of regions existed, millions of survivors, and some had gifts just as unusual as Ethan's. Not identical, but powerful. A woman named Seraphine Holt controlled plant growth. A man named Darius Venn could extract high-grade metals from poor ore. Someone called the Bone Admiral possessed an undead crew. Another survivor had built an island around a volcanic fortress. Global rankings shifted daily. Ethan was strong regionally. Globally, he remained outside the top 100. That was fine. He preferred being underestimated. Then the system announced the second major world event. The calm sea period would end in 10 days. Outer ocean zones would unlock. Regional boundaries would partially dissolve. Ancient ruins would become accessible. Sea monsters would increase. Interregional trade would begin. And one final announcement silenced every channel. The first World Territory competition would begin 30 days later. Rewards included rare blueprints, evolution materials, unique creatures, territorial cores, and authority fragments. Ethan stared at the announcement. Authority fragments. That alone made participation mandatory. His territory authority had already transformed his capabilities. More fragments could push it further. Perhaps complete control over terrain. Perhaps control over the surrounding ocean. Perhaps something even greater. Then a private message arrived from an unknown sender. No name, no regional identification. Only coordinates and one sentence. I know why your island was dead. Ethan's expression changed. Another message followed. It was not bad luck. Your island was sealed. The third message appeared before he could reply. And if you keep upgrading it, something underneath Genesis Island is going to wake up. Ethan closed every other window. He traced the sender. Impossible. The account originated outside his region. Far outside. Then the ground beneath Genesis Island trembled. Once softly, Ethan froze. The spirit spring stopped flowing. Every experimental animal became silent. The deep-water treasure mink flattened itself against the floor and began trembling. Another vibration passed through the island. Deeper this time. Ethan activated territory authority. His awareness sank through the soil, past the enriched farmland, past the iron vein, past the stone foundation, past layers he had never explored. Then he found something impossible. A structure buried beneath Genesis Island, not natural. Enormous, circular, covered in unknown symbols. The entire original dead island had been sitting directly above it from the beginning. Ethan reached deeper with his authority. The structure reacted. A single line of ancient information entered his mind. Primordial terraforming arc status. Dormant, seal integrity, 31%. Ethan stared into the darkness beneath his island. Then another notification appeared. External evolution detected. Seal degradation accelerating. Estimated awakening time 29 days. Almost exactly when the World Territory competition would begin. Ethan finally understood. His dead island had never been worthless. It had been deliberately sterilized. The soil, the trees, the water. Everything had been drained to keep something buried. And every time Ethan upgraded the island, Ethan told no one. Not Marcus. Not the engineers. Not the governors of the primordial dominion. Not even the people living on Genesis Island knew that several kilometers beneath their feet slept something the system called a primordial terraforming arc. For 3 hours, Ethan remained alone inside the underground chamber beneath his fortress, extending his territory authority downward, again and again. Each attempt revealed another fragment. The buried structure was colossal. Its circular outer shell extended beyond the boundaries of his original island and descended farther than his awareness could comfortably reach. Vast channels surrounded it like roots. Some connected to the spirit spring. Others reached toward the ocean. That explained everything. Genesis Island had been dead because the ark had consumed its environment to maintain the seal. The cracked soil had not been naturally infertile. It had been drained. The empty pond had not dried because of bad luck. Its underground water had been diverted. The dead trees had been standing on land whose life energy had been slowly consumed for years, perhaps centuries. His terrible starting position had been the scar left by something ancient. And Ethan had reversed it. Hundredfold spirit soil, primordial water, evolutionary crops, territorial expansion. Every improvement had poured vitality back into a place intentionally deprived of it. The ark was waking because Ethan had turned its prison into paradise. He checked the seal again. 30%. It had already fallen another point. 29 days until predicted awakening. Ethan withdrew his awareness. The anonymous sender was still waiting. He replied with a single question. Who are you? The response arrived several minutes later. Someone who spawned on another sealed island. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Then came another message. Mine opened on the 3rd day. Everyone on it died except me. Ethan reread the sentence. The sender finally revealed a name. Lyra Voss' regional origin remained hidden. She sent no explanation of how she had survived. Instead, she warned him not to destroy the ark. That caught Ethan's attention. If it had killed everyone on her island, destroying it seemed like the obvious solution. Lyra replied that the ark itself was not a creature. It was infrastructure, ancient infrastructure. Its awakening had triggered something else. A guardian. Her island had contained a damaged ark. Genesis apparently contained an intact one. That could be much worse, or much better. Ethan asked how she knew. Lyra sent an item description. A fragment of ancient metal. Ark hull fragment. Recovered from the ruins of a failed primordial terraforming ark. Then she offered to trade information. Her price was absurd. One high-grade territory core. Ethan rejected it. She reduced the demand to rare food and purified marine essence. Ethan countered. 10 kilograms of starfall spirit grain and 1 container of processed ocean essence. Lyra accepted. The information she sent afterward was worth far more. Terraforming arcs had existed before humanity entered the Endless Archipelago. Their original creators were unknown. Their purpose seemed to be the restoration and transformation of dead territory. They could alter soil, generate ecosystems, reshape coastlines, possibly even manufacture new land. Most discovered arcs were destroyed. Some were corrupted. All were dangerous, and every known arc contained a control authority. Ethan stopped reading. Control authority. His territory authority reacted faintly to the words. Lyra warned him again. If Genesis contained a functioning arc, whoever controlled it could potentially transform entire island chains. But if the awakening process failed, the Ark's guardian would classify everything nearby as contamination. Then it would cleanse the territory. Ethan understood what cleanse meant. He asked the only question that mattered. How do I become the controller? Lyra didn't know. Her arc had broken before she could find out. Ethan closed the conversation. 29 days. The World Territory Competition began in 29 days. The arc awakened in approximately 29 days. That was not coincidence. Nothing in this world seemed accidental anymore. Ethan changed his plans. The Dominion's outward expansion stopped. Every governor received new orders: stockpile food, reinforce shelters, increase ship production, prepare evacuation vessels. Marcus questioned the sudden caution. Ethan told him only that Genesis might experience a major territorial event. Marcus understood enough not to argue. Meanwhile, Ethan began excavating. He couldn't simply dig kilometers through solid rock. Territory Authority provided a better method. Every night when the island slept, Ethan descended beneath the fortress and manipulated narrow sections of earth. Soil moved aside. Stone compressed into walls. A descending tunnel formed. 20 meters, 50, 100. The deeper he went, the greater the stamina cost. Dawnstar rice became essential. So did primordial sea titan meat. His body grew stronger from repeated consumption. Not dramatically at first. But after 2 weeks, Ethan could move stones that would previously have required 2 men. His endurance nearly doubled. Territory Authority became easier to maintain. The tunnel descended farther. At 400 meters, Ethan encountered the first barrier. Black material. Warm. Arc hull. He touched it. Golden light appeared. Upgrade available. Ethan immediately withdrew his hand. No, not yet. Upgrading an unknown ancient machine buried beneath his home would be insanity. His ability could turn garbage into treasure. But multiplying an already powerful machine by 100, before understanding it might destroy the entire region. For once, Ethan's greatest weapon was something he deliberately refused to use. He searched along the hull. 3 days later, he found an entrance. A circular door, no handle, no visible mechanism. When Ethan approached, his territory authority resonated. The door opened. Cold air escaped. Lights activated one by one. A corridor stretched into darkness. Ethan entered alone. Tide Piercer rested in his hand. The interior did not resemble a ship. It resembled a buried city. Hallways were wide enough for vehicles. Transparent pipes ran through walls. Empty chambers contained dormant machinery. Symbols appeared wherever Ethan walked. His system translated some. Ecological fabrication sector. Geological restructuring sector. Hydrological control. Atmospheric regulation. Biological archive. Biological archive. The door opened. Thousands of transparent cylinders filled the chamber. Most were empty. Some contained seeds. Others held small crystalline objects. Several contained silhouettes. Living creatures. Dormant. The Ark wasn't merely designed to reshape land. It carried life. A complete toolkit for creating worlds. Then Ethan found the central chamber. A spherical room surrounded by floating rings. At its center waited a pedestal. Above it floated a white crystal. The system identified it: Primordial Ark Control Seed. Compatible authority required. Territory authority detected. Synchronization possible. Ethan approached. Then every light turned red. A warning echoed through the chamber. Unauthorized biological presence detected. Guardian Protocol awakening. The floor shook. Ethan cursed. He had triggered it early. Seal integrity collapsed. 20%. 10. Across Genesis Island, alarms erupted. The ocean withdrew from the shore. Animals screamed. Marcus contacted Ethan immediately. Ethan ignored the message. He grabbed the control seat. Pain exploded through his mind. The ark connected to him. For one instant, Ethan saw everything. Genesis Island from above, the ocean domain, the seabed. Every root, every mineral deposit, every living organism. Then his perception expanded. 10 kilometers, 50, 100. The ark could see the entire region, and beneath the ocean, Ethan saw shapes. Thousands of artificial structures. Dormant. Ancient. Genesis was not unique. The entire Endless Archipelago had been engineered. Then the connection broke. The control seed rejected him. Synchronization incomplete. Territorial authority insufficient. Ethan fell to one knee. The Guardian woke. Something enormous moved beneath the ark. Not outside it, inside. A chamber opened. Metal struck metal. Ethan ran. He barely reached the corridor before a massive limb punched through the wall behind him. White armor. Black joints. A mechanical hand large enough to crush a ship. The Ark Guardian emerged. Its body unfolded from the lower chamber. 10 meters, 20, 30. It continued rising. A humanoid machine built for planetary-scale construction, or planetary-scale destruction. The system identified it. Primordial Terraforming Guardian. Operational capacity, 7%. Ethan almost laughed. 7%. That was supposed to make him feel better? The Guardian's head turned. A white beam swept across the chamber. It detected Ethan. Contaminant identified. Elimination authorized. Ethan ran. A beam struck behind him. The corridor vanished. Not exploded, vanished. Material disintegrated into dust. Ethan activated territory authority. The surrounding arc structure didn't belong to him. He couldn't manipulate it. But the rock outside did. He reached the entrance. Stone surged upward. The Guardian smashed through it. Ethan continued climbing. 400 meters, the tunnel shook. Sections collapsed behind him. When he reached Genesis Island, the ground erupted. The Guardian rose from beneath the fortress. People screamed. Ethan ordered immediate evacuation. Leviathan launched. Civilian ships left the harbor. Marcus began coordinating without asking questions. Good, that was why Ethan had kept him. The Guardian emerged fully, 40 meters more tall. White armor covered a skeletal mechanical body. One arm ended in a massive construction tool. The other transformed between claw, drill, and energy projector. Its chest contained a glowing core. It looked across Genesis, then issued judgment. Ecological contamination exceeded permitted parameters. Unauthorized civilization detected. Terraforming reset required. Ethan's expression hardened. Reset. The Guardian raised its arm. The weapon pointed toward the experimental farms. Ethan activated territory authority. The ground moved. A wall of white fortress stone erupted. The Guardian fired. The wall disappeared. The beam continued. Ethan redirected the terrain beneath the machine. The ground collapsed. One leg sank. Its shot moved off target and struck the ocean. Water exploded into steam. Leviathan fired from the harbor. A reef-breaker projectile struck the Guardian's shoulder. The same weapon that had destroyed Dawn warships barely scratched the white armor. The Guardian turned. It identified Leviathan as a hostile structure. Ethan's mind raced. 7% operational capacity. Ancient machine. Territory authority insufficient for control. He needed more authority. The World Territory Competition rewards included authority fragments. But that event had not started. He needed another source. Then Ethan remembered the control seed. It had rejected him because his territory authority was insufficient, but the control seed had belonged to the Ark. The moment he removed it from the pedestal, it had entered his possession. He reached into his storage pouch. The white crystal remained there. Ownership recognized. Upgrade available. Ethan stared at it. This was dangerous, possibly suicidal. He activated the upgrade. Golden light swallowed the control seed. The Guardian froze. Every light across the Ark flashed. The crystal changed from white to gold. 100-fold primordial Ark sovereign seed. Compatibility requirements drastically reduced. Authority amplification enabled. Guardian override potential detected. Ethan pressed it against his chest. Pain erased and began. His territory authority expanded violently. Genesis Island became part of his consciousness. Then the ocean domain. Then the conquered islands. Then every Dominion territory that recognized his rule. He felt rivers, forests, farms, buildings, people. Ships. The sovereign seed searched for authority. Ethan gave it everything. 20%. 40. 60. The Guardian moved again. It raised its weapon toward Leviathan. Ethan gritted his teeth. 70, 80. The machine fired. Leviathan activated the deep current heart. The dreadship moved. The beam clipped its stern. A section of abyssal plating disappeared. 90. The Guardian prepared another shot. 95. Then synchronization stopped. Ethan nearly screamed. 5%. He needed energy. The Ark required an enormous source. His eyes turned toward the island. Ocean essence. Evolution crystals. Starfall grain. Not enough. Then he remembered the resource buried beneath the western seabed. Arcane tide steel existed because the deposit naturally conducted energy. But the deposit itself wasn't the answer. The ocean was. His primordial ocean domain had accumulated marine energy since creation. He extended territory authority toward it. The sovereign seed responded. The sea began glowing. Fish fled. The tide reef illuminated. Energy traveled through the seabed toward Genesis. Synchronization resumed. 97. The Guardian turned toward Ethan. It had detected the takeover attempt. Its weapon transformed. 98. The machine aimed directly at him. Marcus screamed through the communication channel. Ethan did not move. 99. The Guardian fired. 100. The world became gold. The beam stopped centimeters from Ethan's face. Silence. The Guardian stood motionless, then slowly lowered its arm. Its white armor changed. Golden lines appeared across its body. The ancient machine knelt. Sovereign authority recognized. Guardian control transferred. Ethan Vale recognized as provisional master of primordial terraforming Arc 7. Ethan remained standing only because he refused to fall. The entire island watched the 40-meter machine kneel before him. Nobody spoke. Then the Ark woke completely. Not violently, beautifully. Deep underground, ancient engines activated. The spirit spring erupted into a column of light. The island expanded. Not by 100 square meters. Not by 1,000. Kilometers of new land emerged from the ocean. Mountains pushed upward. Rivers formed. Valleys opened. Forests began appearing from biological fabrication chambers. Genesis expanded until the original island became merely the central hill of a massive territory. The system ranking lost track temporarily. Numbers flashed. Third, second, first. Then the regional ranking disappeared. A global announcement replaced it. A survivor had successfully activated an ancient territorial wonder. Primordial terraforming Arc 7 had returned to operation. The first Arc Sovereign had emerged. Global territorial rankings recalculated. Ethan appeared at 73rd, then 41, then 19, 7th. Millions of survivors saw the name. Ethan Vale. The man who had started with the worst island in his region was now 7th in the world. And that was before he discovered the final function of the Ark. Inside the command chamber, a new interface opened. Terraforming. Biological restoration. Climate adjustment. Mineral synthesis. Island creation. Ethan stopped. Island creation. The Ark could build islands. Given enough energy and raw material, it could raise new territory from the seabed. Not conquer, create. Ethan understood the future instantly. Other rulers would fight over existing land. He didn't need to. He could manufacture land. The Dominion no longer needed expansion through war. It could grow without stealing a single island. That made Ethan more dangerous than any conqueror. It also made him a target. Within 1 hour of the global announcement, messages arrived from every direction. Trade offers, alliance, threats, marriage proposals, demands for Ark technology. The Bone Admiral sent a single sentence. Sell me the Ark, or I will take it. The volcanic fortress ruler offered protection in exchange for shared control. Seraphine Holt requested peaceful diplomatic contact. Darius Venn proposed technology exchange. Lyra Voss sent only 3 words. You actually did it. Ethan replied. You were wrong about one thing. She asked what? The Ark wasn't waking because I upgraded Genesis. It was waiting for someone capable of controlling it. Before Lyra could answer, the global system interrupted. The World Territory competition schedule changed. Due to the emergence of the first Ark Sovereign, the competition would begin immediately. Every top 100 territorial ruler received an invitation. Refusal was permitted. But the first-place reward was revealed, a complete authority core. Ethan stared at it. His 100-fold territory authority had come from upgrading a fragment. What would happen if he obtained a complete core? Then upgraded that? The competition opened. Across the Endless Archipelago, the strongest survivors began moving. The Bone Admiral's undead fleet left its waters. Seraphine's living forest island uprooted itself and began sailing. Darius launched steel warships. Volcanic ships emerged from smoke-covered seas. The strongest rulers in the world were heading toward the competition zone. Marcus stood beside Ethan on Genesis's newly formed cliff. He asked how many ships they should send. Ethan looked toward Leviathan, damaged, powerful, but no longer enough. Then he looked at the Ark Guardian kneeling near the harbor, and finally toward the terraforming Ark itself. A new construction function had unlocked. Ark-class vessel fabrication. Ethan smiled. One ship had been enough to defeat Marcus, but the world was larger than Marcus. This time, Ethan would bring a fleet. The World Territory competition began with a countdown visible to every survivor alive. 24 hours. That was how long the top 100 rulers had to reach the competition zone. Ethan needed 6. The terraforming Ark's ship fabrication chamber opened beneath Genesis Harbor, exposing construction platforms that had remained dormant for an age. Ethan did not waste time building another Leviathan. Leviathan had been created from a blueprint designed by the survival system and elevated through his power. The Ark offered something fundamentally different: terraforming vessels. Machines built to cross hostile oceans while carrying enough equipment to reshape foreign territory. The first available design was classified as an Ark Vanguard. 30 meters long, heavy hull, independent energy circulation. Terrain deployment modules, automated repair systems, no conventional sails. Ethan selected it. The Ark demanded materials. He had them. Arcane Tide steel entered the fabrication chamber. Abyssal Fortress carapace followed. Emberwood. Ocean, white fortress stone. Hundreds of kilograms of refined metal. The Ark consumed everything. 3 hours later, the sea beneath Genesis Harbor began glowing. A vessel rose from the water. Silver-black armor covered its hull. Blue energy lines pulsed along the sides. It possessed no mast, no sail. Its propulsion system was entirely internal. Marcus stared at it in silence. Ethan touched the completed vessel. Ownership recognized. Upgrade available. Marcus saw the golden light and immediately stepped backward. He had learned what that light meant. Ethan activated it. The Ark Vanguard disappeared inside a miniature sun. When the brilliance faded, something much larger floated before them. Hundredfold Ark Dominion cruiser. Enhanced armor, enhanced propulsion, self-repair, integrated territorial deployment field, long-range energy artillery, marine monster deterrence, limited autonomous navigation. Marcus finally spoke. He asked whether Ethan could make more. Ethan looked toward the fabrication chamber, then toward his warehouses. Yes, but not enough before the competition, so he chose quality. 1 Dominion cruiser Leviathan, 3 upgraded raider frigates, 2 supply vessels. The Ark Guardian would remain at Genesis. That decision surprised Marcus. The 40-meter machine was their strongest individual weapon. But Ethan refused to leave the heart of his civilization undefended. The world now knew Genesis contained an Ark. Someone would eventually attack. The Guardian stayed. Marcus stayed too. Ethan placed him in temporary command of the Dominion. Again, people questioned the decision. Again, Ethan ignored them. Marcus had already lost once. Now he had something greater to lose: status, authority, a second chance. Men like Marcus could become extremely loyal when loyalty was profitable. Ethan boarded the Dominion cruiser. The Deepwater treasure mink jumped onto his shoulder. 20 carefully selected fighters joined him. Engineers occupied the lower deck. 2 navigators entered the command room. The fleet departed. For the first time since arriving in the Endless Archipelago, Ethan left Genesis behind. The ocean beyond his domain felt different. Inside his territory, he could sense everything. Outside it, his awareness shrank. The loss was uncomfortable. But the Dominion cruiser compensated. Its detection field extended several kilometers. Hidden reefs appeared on the navigation display. Marine creatures registered as moving signals. Currents became visible. The vessel crossed the ocean at a speed ordinary ships couldn't approach. Halfway to the competition zone, they encountered their first foreign fleet. 7 of them, no sails. Smoke rose from mechanical exhaust stacks. Darius Venn, his flagship, moved alongside Ethan's cruiser. A tall man stood at the bow, silver hair, dark coat, metallic armor covering one arm. He greeted Ethan through the competition channel. No hostility, no arrogance, only curiosity. Darius had seen the global announcement. He wanted to see the Ark Sovereign for himself. Ethan wanted to see the man capable of building steel ships while most humanity still used wood. The 2 fleets traveled together temporarily. Darius explained nothing about his ability. Ethan revealed nothing about his own. But they understood each other. Builders recognized builders. Darius examined the Dominion cruiser from a distance. He asked whether its hull was pure metal. Ethan said partially. Darius smiled. Then, Asked whether Ethan would trade 1 kilogram of the blue alloy visible near the propulsion vents. Arcane asked what he offered. Darius held up a silver ingot, titanium-like alloy. The system identified it only as high-grade storm steel, extremely light, extremely durable, excellent electrical conductivity. Ethan accepted. 1 kilogram for 1 kilogram. The trade completed. The moment storm steel entered Ethan's inventory, golden light appeared. Upgrade available. He almost laughed. Darius had just handed him another technological branch. Ethan didn't upgrade it yet. Darius was watching. Some secrets were worth preserving. The fleet separated near the competition boundary. Then the world opened. The competition zone was enormous. Hundreds of kilometers of ocean surrounded a central continent-sized island. Not natural land, ruins covered it. Collapsed walls, ancient roads, artificial mountains. The system announced the rules: 100 rulers. 7 days. Each participant would receive a temporary territorial beacon. Capture territory. Defeat guardian creatures. Occupy ancient structures. Gather competition points. Destroying another participant's beacon would eliminate them. Killing participants was permitted but unnecessary. The final ranking would determine rewards. First place would receive the complete authority core. Ethan's objective became simple: take first place. The competition began. Most rulers rushed toward the central island. Ethan didn't. He studied the map. Everyone wanted visible ruins, which meant visible ruins would become battlefields. Instead, Ethan deployed his temporary beacon on a tiny barren island near the southern edge of the competition zone. The system evaluated it. Almost no resources, no structures, minimal strategic value. Several competitors laughed in the public channel. Ethan had heard that before: dead land, worthless land, bad starting position. He stepped onto the barren soil. Temporary ownership recognized. Golden light appeared. Upgrade available. Ethan smiled. The competition organizers had made a mistake. They had given him territory. He activated the upgrade. The barren island transformed. Stone compressed, soil enriched. The shoreline expanded. A freshwater source emerged. The temporary beacon itself evolved. 100-fold Dominion competition beacon. Territorial influence range increased. Defensive strength increased. Resource detection enhanced. Passive point generation increased. Ethan checked the scoreboard. He had been 97th. 63. 40, 21, all without fighting anyone. The laughter stopped. The upgraded beacon detected something beneath the island. An ancient structure. Buried, Ethan used territory authority. The ground opened. A staircase appeared. He descended with 6 fighters. At the bottom waited a sealed chamber. 3 stone guardians activated. Each stood 4 meters tall. Ethan's fighters raised weapons. Ethan stopped them. The chamber floor belonged to his temporary territory now. He raised one hand. Stone beneath the first guardian collapsed. It fell. The second charged. The wall beside it compressed into a spike. The guardian shattered against it. The third reached Ethan. Tidepiercer entered the gap beneath its head. One thrust. The guardian stopped. The chamber opened. Inside rested an ancient territorial relay. Capturing it awarded 5,000 points. Ethan took ownership. Upgrade available. He activated it. The relay evolved into a 100-fold ancient Dominion relay. Point generation multiplied. Territorial detection expanded. A hidden map appeared. Ethan stared. The competition zone contained 12 major ancient structures. Every visible ruin on the central island was merely decoration compared with them. Most were underground. One was underwater. One floated high above the clouds. And one was directly beneath the central battlefield. Ethan transmitted the map to his fleet, then began moving. By the end of the first day, he controlled 3 hidden relays. His ranking reached 5th. The Bone Admiral held 1st, Seraphine Holt held 2nd, Darius Venn held 3rd. A volcanic ruler named Kale Draven held 4th. Ethan was closing rapidly. Day 2 became violent. The Bone Admiral captured an ancient graveyard and raised hundreds of guardian corpses into his army. Seraphine transformed a forest into a moving fortress. Kale seized a volcanic structure and redirected lava through defensive channels. Darius activated an ancient foundry. Each top ruler possessed something monstrous. Ethan avoided them. He captured infrastructure, water relays, observation towers, buried resource stations. Every structure became his temporary property. Every newly acquired structure could be upgraded once. By day 3, he controlled nearly a quarter of the southern competition zone. Then someone attacked. Not one of the top rulers. A coalition of 9 participants. They had noticed Ethan's rapid growth and concluded that eliminating him early was necessary. Their combined fleet contained 46 ships. They approached his southern beacon at night. Ethan detected them 20 kilometers away. The coalition leader demanded surrender. Ethan declined. They attacked. The Dominion cruiser fired once. A beam of compressed marine energy crossed the ocean. The lead vessel lost its bow, not exploded. Severed, the fleet scattered. Raider frigates emerged from hidden coves. Leviathan struck from the western flank. Then Ethan activated the Dominion beacon. Territorial deployment field expanded across the surrounding sea. For several kilometers, the seabed became his temporary territory. His territory authority connected. The ocean floor moved. Reefs rose, enemy ships collided, channels closed. Shallow ridges trapped vessels. The coalition realized the horrifying truth. They were not fighting Ethan on water. They were fighting him on land buried beneath water. 20 minutes later, the battle ended. Ethan destroyed no beacons. Instead, he offered surrender terms. Withdraw, leave half their stored competition resources. Keep their lives and participation rights. 8 accepted. 1 refused. That ruler attempted to ram Leviathan. His ship broke against the abyssal hull. Ethan captured his beacon. Ownership transferred. Upgrade. His territory expanded again. The scoreboard updated. 2nd place. Only the Bone Admiral remained above him. The Admiral finally contacted Ethan. His message contained an invitation. Meet at the central ruins. No armies, Ethan agreed. The meeting occurred on day 4. The Bone Admiral was not what Ethan expected. He looked young, perhaps 25, black hair. No armor. He sat on a broken stone throne surrounded by 6 skeletal knights. His name was Adrian Graves. He congratulated Ethan, then offered a partnership. Adrian didn't care about the complete authority core. He wanted something else. Beneath the central ruins was a sealed vault. His undead could sense millions of corpses inside. Not human corpses, ancient soldiers. If Adrian gained access, his army would become unstoppable. In exchange for Ethan opening the vault, Adrian would intentionally surrender 1st place. Ethan refused. Adrian smiled, then threatened Genesis. Ethan's expression changed. Adrian knew its coordinates. Everyone did after the Ark announcement. But he claimed to have already sent an undead vessel toward Ethan's region. If Ethan refused, the ship would attack civilians. Ethan stared at him. Adrian expected fear. Instead, Ethan opened the Dominion communication channel. Marcus answered. Ethan asked whether any unknown ship had approached Genesis. Marcus laughed. One had past tense. The Ark Guardian had stepped into the ocean and crushed it with one hand. Adrian's smile vanished. Ethan stood. Threatening him was one thing. Threatening civilians to manipulate him was another. The negotiation was over. Adrian's skeletal knights moved. Ethan raised his hand. The ruined floor beneath them shifted. 2 skeletons disappeared into stone. Tide piercers shattered another. Adrian retreated. Hundreds of undead emerged from surrounding ruins. He had never intended to come alone. Neither had Ethan. The Dominion cruiser rose from behind a distant cliff. Its long-range artillery fired. The battlefield exploded. Seraphine's forest appeared on the eastern horizon. Darius's steel fleet approached from the west. Kale's volcanic troops marched from the north. Every top ruler had realized the same thing. The Bone Admiral was about to unlock the central vault. Nobody wanted him to have it. The competition became war. Adrian opened the graveyard. Thousands of undead surged toward the central ruins. Seraphine raised a wall of living trees. Darius's artillery fired metal bolts through skeletal formations. Kale flooded the northern approach with molten rock. Ethan did something else. He went underground. The upgraded relays had shown him a route beneath the battlefield. He descended through an ancient service tunnel, while armies fought overhead. The deepwater treasure mink guided him. At the bottom waited the vault. Adrian had been correct. Something enormous lay beyond it. But the system did not identify the contents as corpses. Ancient terraforming legion. Ethan stopped. Terraforming. Not military soldiers, workers' machines. Thousands of autonomous units built to reshape territory. The Ark Sovereign Seed reacted. The vault recognized him. Door authorization available. Adrian had needed Ethan because only Ark authority could open it. Ethan placed his hand against the gate. The vault opened. Rows upon rows of machines stood inside, some humanoid, others designed for excavation, construction, agriculture, marine engineering, atmospheric regulation. Adrian had mistaken dormant machines for dead bodies because his necromantic sense detected their inactive energy signatures. Ethan laughed. Then the system asked whether he wished to claim the terraforming legion. Yes. Ownership transferred. Golden light appeared. Thousands of independent machines were now his. Ethan's smile disappeared. He could upgrade them, all of them. The battlefield above shook. Adrian had broken through Seraphine's defenses. His undead army approached the vault. Ethan didn't have time to upgrade thousands individually, so he targeted the command network. 1. Terraforming Legion Control Core. Upgrade. Golden light filled the underground city. Every dormant machine opened its eyes. Blue became gold. Hundredfold Dominion Terraforming Legion activated. The ground erupted. Machines climbed from beneath the central ruins. Undead stopped. Seraphine stopped. Darius stopped. Even Adrian froze. Thousands of ancient machines emerged behind Ethan. Not soldiers, but a machine capable of moving a mountain did not need a sword to destroy a skeleton. The Legion advanced. Excavators crushed undead formations. Construction units raised walls instantly. Terrain machines opened trenches. Marine units flooded underground passages. Adrian's army collapsed. He tried to retreat. Ethan didn't chase him. He captured the central relay. Upgrade. The scoreboard exploded. Ethan moved into first place. The Bone Admiral fell to 5th. Day 5. Ethan controlled the center. Day 6. Seraphine approached peacefully. She offered biological samples in exchange for access to Ark agricultural research after the competition. Ethan accepted. Darius offered a permanent technology exchange. Ethan accepted. Kyle requested a non-aggression agreement. Accepted. Ethan wasn't interested in ruling every survivor. Civilization grew faster through exchange than slavery. On the final day, Adrian made one last attempt. He gathered every remaining undead creature and attacked Ethan's main beacon. The assault lasted 11 minutes. The Terraforming Legion built defensive walls faster than the undead could destroy them. Leviathan sank Adrian's flagship. The Dominion cruiser destroyed his beacon. The Bone Admiral was eliminated. The competition ended. Final ranking, first place, Ethan Vale. The complete authority core materialized before him. It resembled a miniature planet. Land rotated across its surface. Oceans moved, clouds formed. The system described it as a complete territory authority. It could grant high-level control over owned terrain and dramatically increase territorial perception. For anyone else, it was already priceless. Ethan touched it. Golden light appeared. Upgrade available. He activated it. The miniature planet expanded in brilliance. Mountains formed across its surface. Oceans deepened. Continents shifted. The item changed. Hundredfold World Sovereign Authority Core. The system fell silent. For several seconds, it displayed nothing. Then a new description appeared. A complete authority exceeding ordinary territorial classification. Grants sovereign control over owned land, subterranean structures, coastlines, territorial waters, atmospheric conditions within limited range, and compatible ecological systems. Unlocks large-scale terrain creation. Unlocks territorial fusion. Unlocks remote domain connection. Unlocks authority growth. Ethan absorbed it. The Endless Archipelago changed, or perhaps his perception did. He could feel Genesis from hundreds of kilometers away. Then Verdant War Island, Iron Bamboo Island, White Fortress Island, every Dominion territory. Lines of golden energy connected them. Separate islands. Ethan raised one hand. Territorial fusion became available. His heartbeat accelerated. He selected Genesis. Then Verdant War Island. Then the other directly owned territories. The system calculated the cost. Enormous. But the terraforming arc could provide energy. The competition reward included millions of resource points. Ethan converted them. The fusion began. Back in his region, the ocean roared. Marcus ran to the Genesis watchtower. Every survivor across the Dominion watched the horizon. Islands moved. Islands. The seabed rose beneath them. Long ridges of new land emerged. Separate territories connected. Waterways formed between them. Genesis expanded outward. Verdant forests joined agricultural plains. White stone mountains rose in the north. Iron bamboo spread across eastern valleys. Harbors formed along natural bays. Rivers connected freshwater systems. The primordial ocean domain became an inland sea surrounded by growing territory. The terraforming arc worked continuously. The Dominion stopped being an archipelago. It became a continent, small at first, but undeniably a continent. Ethan returned 3 days later. Leviathan entered a harbor surrounded by land stretching farther than he could see. Thousands of survivors gathered. Marcus waited at the dock. He looked at Ethan, then toward the continent. He remembered the first day, 30 meters of cracked soil, 3 dead trees. And no food, no water. Last place, now mountains stood where ocean had once existed. Farms stretched across valleys. Arcane ships crossed engineered canals. The Ark Guardian patrolled the coast. Terraforming machines built roads. Starfall grain-covered fields in silver-gold waves. Children born after humanity's arrival, in the Endless Archipelago would grow up believing this place had always existed. Ethan knew better. Everything had begun with dead dirt. Then the system issued another global announcement. The first sovereign continental territory had been established. Its ruler could assign an official name. Ethan looked across the land. Everyone expected something grand. Primordial Empire. Ark Dominion. Ethan chose none. He named it Haven, because power without somewhere safe to live was meaningless. The system accepted the name. Haven Continent entered the global map. Then Ethan received one final notification. His original beginner evaluation had been recalculated. The system displayed the memory almost mockingly. Initial island condition. Dead. Initial potential. Essentially worthless. Current evaluation. Ethan laughed. Then another line appeared. World's sovereign authority detected. Terraforming arc synchronized. Territorial evolution conditions satisfied. Next evolution available. Target. Haven Continent. Ethan went completely still. He had upgraded individual resources. He had upgraded ships, weapons, animals, buildings, conquered islands, even Genesis itself. But Haven was new. The fused continent had never existed before, which meant, according to his ability, it was a newly created resource under his absolute ownership. Upgrade available. Marcus saw Ethan's expression. He asked what was wrong. Ethan looked across millions of tons of stone, soil, forests, rivers, cities, farms, mines, and coastline. Nothing was wrong. Everything was about to become 100 times better. He activated the upgrade. Golden light appeared at the horizon. It spread across Haven. Mountains glowed, rivers turned luminous, forests erupted with life. Mineral veins multiplied beneath the earth. Spirit energy poured from the soil. The ocean surrounding the continent rose into enormous walls without crossing the shoreline. The terraforming arc screamed warnings because even it couldn't calculate what was happening. Haven expanded, not merely in size. In quality, ordinary farmland became spirit-rich plains. Forests evolved into ancient ecological zones. Mountains developed rare mineral deposits. Freshwater rivers gained purification properties. The atmosphere itself changed. Every human standing on Haven felt exhaustion disappear. Crops grew visibly. Animals evolved. The arcane tide steel deposit spread beneath an entire mountain chain. The primordial ocean domain deepened into a vast inland sea filled with energy. The Ark Guardian evolved with the territory. Its white armor became gold-black. Terraforming machines across the continent upgraded simultaneously because they were integrated into Haven's infrastructure. Even the Ark changed. The ancient structure shook beneath Genesis. Ethan's face changed. He had not targeted it directly. But the Ark was now an inseparable component of Haven. Golden light swallowed it. Primordial terraforming Ark 7 evolved. The system attempted identification, failed. Tried again. Failed. Then finally produced a name, World Genesis Engine. A planetary-class territorial creation structure, capable of producing land, creating stable ecosystems, generating controlled climate zones, restoring devastated environments, manufacturing compatible resource deposits, constructing artificial islands, and given sufficient energy, expanding sovereign territories indefinitely. Silence spread across the world. Every global ranking updated simultaneously. Haven moved from first regional territory to first global territory. Ethan moved to first in territorial development, first in resource potential, first in agricultural capacity, first in infrastructure, second in military power. Then the evolved Guardian registered, first in military power. The same survivor who had once ranked 10,000th in a beginner region now occupied first place across every major territorial category. Messages flooded in. Ethan closed them. He walked alone to the place where everything had started. The location still existed. He had preserved it intentionally. A 30-meter circle at the heart of Genesis. The original cracked ground was gone, but one dead tree remained. Ethan had never upgraded it. The last truly worthless resource from his first day. He placed his hand against the brittle bark. For a moment he remembered the laughter. Half a coconut. That had been Marcus's first offer. Everything valuable on Ethan's island for half a coconut. Marcus would never live that down. Ethan activated the upgrade. Golden light surrounded the final dead tree. Its roots expanded, the trunk thickened. Branches reached toward the sky. Leaves unfolded like emerald flames. The tree grew until its crown towered over Genesis. The system identified it as an ancient worldroot tree. Its roots could stabilize enormous territories. Its leaves purified atmospheric energy. Its fruit could strengthen living organisms. Its presence increased ecological stability across Haven. Ethan looked upward. One dead tree. That was all it had taken. Not because the tree had secretly been valuable. Not because his original island had secretly been perfect. It had genuinely been terrible. That was the point. Everyone else had received fertile islands and immediately feared losing what they had. Ethan had received nothing. So he had learned to build. One dead branch became Emberwood. One handful of dirt became spirit soil. One patch of mud became a spring. One tomato seed became an evolutionary food source. One broken spear killed a monster. One monster became an ocean domain. One enemy fleet became his navy. One conquered island became the foundation of a federation. One buried machine became the engine of a continent. And one dead island became Haven. The system delivered a final private message. World evolution threshold reached. Haven recognized as humanity's first sovereign-grade civilization territory. A new objective became available. The Endless Archipelago was only the first layer. Beyond the known ocean existed sealed continents, ancient civilizations, higher-level disasters, other arch sovereigns, and entities responsible for creating the survival system itself. Ethan read everything, then dismissed the notification. There would always be another ocean, another enemy, another impossible ranking. Another person convinced that starting stronger meant finishing stronger. Ethan had stopped caring about rankings. He looked across Haven. Ships moved through golden water. Fields stretched beneath the sun. Cities rose along engineered rivers. Children ran beneath the world root tree. Former enemies traded inside the same harbor. The dead land beneath his feet was alive. That was enough. Then the World Genesis engine sent him a quiet notification. A newly discovered barren continent had been located beyond the western boundary. Resource evaluation, almost zero. Soil condition, freshwater, none. Vegetation, none. Current potential, essentially worthless. Ethan stared at the description. Slowly a smile appeared. Somewhere far across the ocean waited another dead land that nobody wanted, which meant it was perfect. Because everyone else still saw value as something they needed to find. Ethan had learned something far more dangerous. Value could be created. And when every upgrade made his land 100 times better, the poorest territory in the world was never a curse. It was simply the cheapest place to begin building an empire.